Okay, we're going to call to order the regularly scheduled open session for El Segundo City Council, along with the special agenda item related to Top Golf. And we're going to have the invocation done by Pastor George Lopez of the Bridge Church. Could you please lead us?
Heavenly Father, we ask for guidance and wisdom and discernment as we begin this meeting. Father, we pray for strength and unity in our civil leaders. Lord, I pray that you would pour out your blessings upon them as they serve others in such a strong way. Father, I pray that our city would be a light, Lord, that would draw others to safety and prosperity. I pray, Lord, that every word and every thought tonight would bring you glory. Lord, that they would be strength as we grow together, Father. Lord, I pray that your grace and mercy would go beyond these four walls. So, Lord, we ask that you lead us now. In Jesus' name, amen.
Okay, I don't see any presentations for the evening, so we're going to go right into roll call. City Clerk Tracy Weaver.
Mayor Fuentes, absent. Mayor Pro Tem Boyles,
Here.
Councilmember Dugan,
Here.
Councilmember Brand,
Over here tonight.
Councilmember Person. Here. I went out of order.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, now is the time and place for public communications, limited to 5 minutes per person. If you could please state your name and your address. Thank you.
I'm Josh Genius, and I'm living original in the Illinois Street, Ward 20. And I am a roommate, and I have a problem with the police. The police starts harassing my RV again. Even I obtained the law from 2 till 6. I'm out of the city, coming back. The police comes to the A-loft, where I had guest pass and where I had paid the A-loft to leave my RV there. They came to the A-loft multiple times to the employees and forcing them to take off my RV from the property, but it's a private business and original not allowed to do so. Otherwise, I had yesterday in the evening seen a police officer again of the property from the A-loft where I was by Walgreens, and there was like 9 till 9:30. He was then racing from the lot to Grand, really racing. He was not in appropriate speed, but was really strange. But I want to take a picture of him, but he went quick away. So, and there's some other patterns. So, one side where I had talked today in the morning with the chief. There was investigating illegal on my private life in the background, and I had listened this from him, and he says, yeah, they can do this and so stuff. It's not true. So as to the break-in, what was last year in my RV, hoods in a dent. Then on the 29th, I got a strange object in my tires by the car, not in my RV. Then I had an attack from a passenger. I called the police officer didn't do anything. They didn't want to go to the hotel where they picked up the customer. That's very sad. Then on the June 20th, my tire got marked in the street by Wendy's Cafe across Grand Avenue. I was the only one that got marked. Then 6/27, I was coming from another city where I allowed to stay till I can come back 6 o'clock. I was 10 minutes too early. They give me a ticket. Then, yeah, there's another thing which was there from putting a stone on my windshield, on the windshield wiper, till other stuff, what's happened. It's gonna be too much pattern. And there was also on the 4th of July, on my windshield wiper, on the windshield, a sign standing with warning. Inappropriate. I think the police goes out of the line, and I would like that here in this case the police get pulled back. You originally started to put an oversized vehicle permit in. I obtained the law, and the officer mistreating the law to use to harass me. And I do not like this. And it's discrimination. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Dickie Van Breen, President of El Segundo Rotary, the best service club in all the South Bay, in my opinion. It's my pleasure to announce El Segundo Rotary's 20th annual Movie in the Park, which will be held this Saturday, August 5th. We'll be showing Disney's Moana, and it's a luau theme with all kinds of entertainment for the kids and food for the family. Doors open at 4 p.m. at Chevron Park, and the movie begins at dusk. El Segundo Rotary would like to give a special thank you to the City of El Segundo for its continued support of this family-oriented event. And thank you to the El Segundo Police Department Traffic Management Team for its support. We'd also like to thank Chevron and our many sponsors, making this our 20th annual Movie in the Park. And we invite you all to join us Saturday, August 5th. Thank you.
Thank you. Great event.
Good evening. My name is Jack Axelrod. I live at 317 Richmond Street, Apartment B. I've been a resident for 18 or 19 years. I'm not sure which. Whenever I speak to you, I'm incredibly incoherent, but I don't realize that until afterwards. It's a very short meeting. Thank you. It's a very short meeting tonight. I'll try and keep my words brief, and I usually do. I'd still like to get rid of the invocation. It sounds like the guy, the religious leader who leads the invocation is telling what he conceives of as God what to do and how to do it, and just forget about it altogether. I should explain, of course, that I am, as you probably know or have realized by now, I have to think about what the hell I am. I don't believe in God. I'm an atheist, and have been one as long as I can remember. From the time I was, I don't know, maybe 12 or 13. I descended from a Jewish family. Back then, back when I was 12, 13, you used to go to the temple, and you hear a lot of words to describe the chosen people. That expression never comes up anymore. The chosen people. The Jews are chosen people. Chosen by whom? And besides, there aren't chosen. No, it's all right. I said that enough. They're not chosen. You got to get over that idea. Are we a democracy? I question that. It seems to me more that we are a military empire. We have over 100, well over 100 bases, military bases around the world. It should be pointed out that the military, our military, is the chief polluter on the planet. Once in a while, I'd like to hear some words during a city council meeting, and I do not hear them, about the health of the ocean. That seems like it would be very important to us. Also about the climate. I don't hear that. It never comes up. We talk about other things, which is good. We talk about other things. It's terrific that we talk about other things. I'd like to get rid of Chevron altogether. Get them out of there. Why do we have this love affair with the Chevron oil company? These people are killing us. They're killing the planet, and they're killing all of us. Thank you very much for your attention. Be well, stay well, avoid frustration if you possibly can.
Thank you, Jack.
Hi, my name's Julia Lillis Cohen. I think I live over on East Pine. I think I've met some of you on a phone call when I interviewed for one of the recent open positions for the Recreation and Parks Commission. I didn't get it. It's okay. I did, though, recently. I have a lot of ideas about the Recreation and Parks Commission and things I think they maybe should be doing. So I went to the last Recreation and Parks Commission meeting to bring up something that the Moms Club and I'm a member of the Moms Club. There's about 120 moms in the local Moms Club. And the Moms Club, but not just the Moms Club, just sort of like mom friends in El Segundo that I'm friends with, have been thinking about possibly getting some fences at two of the parks, at Hilltop Park and at Holly, Kansas. So I went to the Parks and Rec, or to the Recreation and Parks meeting last July 19th. And I think, and like we pitched it and it was fairly well received. But I think what struck me is how sort of surprised and sort of off their radar the idea of fences at the parks was. And when the commission members had a moment to comment on the idea of fences, some of the things that were said, I tried to look it up, the minutes weren't up yet today. But some of the things that were said were, wow, this is not even on our radar. Wow, we need to be talking to more of the moms. Wow, none of us have had young kids. They're going to the playgrounds for quite a long time. Council member or commission member Davis said a few times the word homogeneous, which I think really like describes the group. It's like a bunch of men with older children who are not using these parks on a regular basis. So I just wanted to bring up the point that I know that you still might be considering adding 2 seats to that commission. I know that I think like 6 people interviewed for those positions, for the 2 open positions. And I know for a fact that at least 3 of them were moms, myself included, and not just moms, but like moms of young children. So I feel like I just wanted to make a push to think about adding those 2 seats, to think about putting a mom, or not even just a mom, just a parent of small kids, a caretaker of small kids, like a grandma who's going to the park every day with her grandkids would have a better idea of sort of what that user base is looking for. Other things that I think, just to rattle off my quick list of things that I think are not on their radar at all, but I think if you talk to any mom, they would kind of be into any of these things. Fences of the parks, more shade, either trees or canopies at all the parks, the playgrounds, the pools. South Park and Hermosa Beach, just put some canopies up. Mayor Pro Tem Boyles, I tagged you, and I've just now been like kind of tagging people that I think could maybe make a difference. Different swim times at the plunge, different swim times for Hilltop Pool. Basically, it's open exactly during most kids' nap times. Adult classes at different times. I know a lot of moms who want to take like tennis classes, but it's sort of right during bedtime routine, which never quite works. The sandbox over at the Tot Lot at Rec Park is basically just dirt and cement at this point, plus like a lot of cats use it as a litter box. So that's not great. More baby swings. There's just not all I know of are 2 actual of the baby swings that like the baby sits in with the legs sticking out. So I feel like maybe some more baby swings somewhere in El Segundo, more bathrooms at parks, dreams of most moms that I'm friends with, like a splash pad, some kind of fountain splash pad situation. And that's pretty much all that's on my list. So that's it. I can't stay to listen to what you guys say at the end, but I do watch the videos. I have to go put my kids to bed. So I'll watch that if you guys have anything to say to that. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Cohen. Okay, that'll close out public comments. Any comments from city council members?
On that last item, where are we with the proposition or proposal to add members to Rec and Park Commission? Is staff preparing the report?
Meredith, can you provide some context? I believe the direction you gave us was to talk to the Rec and Parks Commission and get their recommendation. on either adding people or having a separate committee?
Meredith, would you mind addressing that? Thank you.
So at the July commission meeting, we did have an item on the agenda regarding subcommittees. And also this discussion came up about adding members, but I think where the conversation more was focused on was the aquatic center and whether or not an additional committee was needed to help out with the management of the aquatic center specifically, because I think the conversation from the city council after the last item was more about specifically that facility. So they appointed 2 members to an aquatic subcommittee to hopefully flesh out that idea and see how that evolves over the next couple months. So there wasn't, I think we stated during the item here at City Council that commission, the 5 commission members, really felt that the 5 is a sufficient number on that specific commission.
Anything else, Dr. Brad, on that one?
Just to point out that at that meeting, I did attend a portion of it. The incoming president of the commission is Bob Moda, recently reappointed. He's back as the chair. Thank you.
And I know Meredith Pettit's group, she's the director of Rexham Park. They do a lot of outreach, and they have reached out to groups of moms and other users of facilities about splash pad and other reconfigurations of parks. There's been a lot of dialogue lately on Facebook and other endorsed city channels, but people are definitely interested in getting their opinion heard, so I forwarded some of that stuff to the Rexham Park Commission so they know what's transpiring on that channel. So thank you for that. All right, we
comments.
Sorry.
Another comment.
Oh, sorry, Mike.
You know, I wish people would come and speak the truth when they come to these meetings, because Vicky's talking about movie in the park, and she talked about the best club in town being Rotary, and I just can't believe that just flew by without anybody saying anything. So I'm going to say that Vicky's a liar. Kiwanis is by far the
Vicky's
best.
not here to defend herself, but I might agree with you as a Kiwanian myself. But
That was all I wanted to get.
thanks, Mike. All right, let's move on to A, consideration of a motion to read all ordinances and resolutions on the agenda by title only.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
4-0. Special orders of business, public hearing, none there. So under unfinished business, item 1, consideration and possible action to receive and file a preliminary plan to form a downtown committee to address maintenance and possible improvements to downtown El Segundo.
On this item, Councilmember Perstick and our city manager have potential conflicts due to the location of their residences relative to the downtown area. So they'll be leaving the room.
Okay, and Greg, are you presenting on this?
No, I have a conflict, but Sam Lee, our
Oh,
Director
sorry, you
of
just
Planning
said
and
that.
Building, is going to present this item.
And Barbara's not here. Barbara Voss would be Economic Development Manager, but she's got a family emergency, so we wish her the best. Thank you, Sam.
So a question, Mark, what if 2 people lived on Main Street and they were dismissed and the mayor's not here, and there's only 2 of us left up here? How do you proceed?
Well, in that event, we would wait till the next meeting until the mayor was back.
Mhm.
If there were 3 of you, then we would have to draw straws. But that answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much.
Mr. Lee, please.
Update. I have a brief update on the downtown committee. Last month, on July 5th, council directed staff to explore possibility of forming a downtown committee for the purpose of addressing maintenance and making overall improvements. Essentially, hoping to make the downtown more attractive and inviting for our residents, shoppers, and visitors. Staff would like to proceed with forming the downtown committee. We're thinking that the committee would be made up of various different stakeholders, of merchants, property owners, members of the chamber, possibly a arts and culture committee member. The group will be led by Barbara Voss, our economic development manager, and will be supported by staff from the various different departments as needed. And the first meeting is, they're hoping to get the first meeting scheduled for September. And unless you have further instructions for us, please let us know. Otherwise, we will report back to you on the progress of the committee in future meetings. Thank you.
Do you have any sense, Sam, of size of the committee and no dollars from the city to support this effort, at least initially?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't. Do you have any suggestions on the size?
I know that the committee that was, the task force that was formed, that Carol and I were on before we were on council, that
Right.
you put together was
Right.
great. I don't know if it was 7 or 9, but that seemed to be a really good group,
Okay.
size, manageable, and some of those people could probably be involved in this, I would imagine, as well. It's
Right.
related.
I think they will be asked, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
How is this group different than that group? That group ended, I think, just as I was rolling in here again. How's this new group, what are they gonna do that the other group didn't do?
Well, I think this group will be focused on beautifying downtown. It'll be landscaping, it'll be making improvements like that. And some of it may intertwine. I mean, whatever that group decides to speak about, they'll bring members of the various different departments in, maybe police, fire, public works. But I think their main focus is on landscaping and making improvements and things like that.
I know our group was focused primarily on signage, tinting ordinances,
Yeah.
some things you wanted to clean up about downtown that need to be
Right.
addressed.
It was mainly focused on some zoning issues, zoning items. And I would invite this committee to bring up some elements in the zoning code that we could maybe take up and bring it back in future meetings as well.
Did that group produce a report?
Yes,
I'd like to get a copy of that.
yes. I'll get that to you, sir.
So Barbara's gonna lead this committee, right? And how are we gonna, how are the people, or the membership, how is that going to be determined? I heard possible this, possible that, but. And what's, their charter is to beautify,
Yeah, I mean, essentially, I was here at the July 5th meeting, and Rec and Park brought an item. They had a limited amount of dollars, and they suggested utilizing that dollar to do some landscape work. And I think from that discussion, it grew into, can we possibly use that money for something else, or maybe even do something more? As far as the committee, I didn't get a chance to speak to Barbara about this, but I did walk over and spoke to Brenda, who was also at that meeting. And Brenda told me that they had a scheduled meeting between Marcia and Brenda and Barbara to get together to come up with a list of people that they would to seek assistance to be on the committee. And I think overall they were looking at the categories that I mentioned.
Okay, and I know EDAC just came out with their strategic plan with the 4 different elements. Downtown was one of those. So are they involved, or is it just through Barbara as the conduit to EDAC? Okay, to be determined.
Yes.
Okay.
It sounds like a great idea, I just don't know what direction it's headed right now,
Do you agree that it should be towards beautification of downtown, making landscape improvements? Or
I think Councilman Dugan's point is if we had a little bit more scope definition of what the task force or committee was going to do beyond just beautification, that might make it easier, but
I think it would be, you need money, so I think it'll start with the basic concept of how much money is available from the city, and if some additional opportunities is there to gather additional funds, I think they'll start with that as a basis of what they think they can achieve.
So could I suggest we flip that around, because limiting a group with funding limits the creativity of what they can do. I'd like them to look at what would it take to revitalize downtown issues, and assuming they have an unlimited budget, which we know is unrealistic, but what would it take to revitalize the downtown area?
Sure.
And then work backwards from there. Okay, so bring it into what other steps, maybe a subset of that, or what can we work our way up into that? But I wouldn't limit them at front. It's just saying, you have, $50,000, what can you do with it, is not a very, to me, that's not gonna accomplish anything. I'd like to get, and we're looking to revitalize downtown. EDAC's looking to help, and people are, I think they're itching to help us do that. What do we need to do to make that happen unconstrained first, and then we get some concepts, and from there we can maybe be a little more selective. But that
Yes,
would
thank
be-
you. This is the direction I think we were seeking.
Okay, so we'll hear back in September. Barbara's had a chance to regroup, and you'll have a little more definition in terms of, is that, we're just
Ye-
filing this right now, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, item 2, under reports of committees, commissions, and boards. Thank you, Mr. Lee. Consideration and possible action to announce the appointments of the
We wanna get-
environmental.
We have to get, hey, they go.
Oh, there she is, sorry.
Here they come.
And hey, guys, cut me a break, first time. It's not quite the same as EDAC up here. Welcome back. I've been there. Okay, consideration and possible action to announce the appointments to the Environmental Committee and Senior Housing Corporation Board. And this is exciting because, as Mrs. Cohen pointed out, we are getting a lot of applicants. We've gotten probably, I don't know, 6 to 10 to every one open spot that we have per committee. And so we have a couple announcements for the Environmental Committee. We are appointing Tracy Miller-Zarnicki, who is the current chair, back to the Environmental Committee, along with Jack Ashworth. And actually, both of their terms will end June 30th of 2021. And on the Senior Citizen Housing Corporation Board, we had 2 openings, quite a bit of interest, and we are appointing James Latta, who's the current chair and doing an incredible job. He will serve through June 30th of 21. And Mario Lane Oakley, who's new to the committee, or to the corporation board, and she will serve also through June 30th of 21. Congratulations. We look forward to working with you. Mike and I are on the Park Vista Corporation Board, and we look forward to adding to the team. Item 3, consideration and possible action. Oh, we did that one. So I did them all both together. Oh, wait, is this a? No, sorry. This is different altogether. Consideration and possible action to receive and file an annual report of the Senior Housing Corporation Board. And I know we got a couple members here. Marty Stone is coming up. And Neil Cadman, who's the administrator, is probably here for backup. Thank you. Marty, welcome.
Hi,
Hi, Marty.
Marty Stone. I'm here for Jim Latta. He unfortunately couldn't be here because he's soaking up the sun in Hawaii as I speak. So you have Jim prepared a report, and it's his report's kind of short. It includes he just had a reserve study done on Park Vista, and it was quite lengthy. And I tried to, since I don't have much time here, I tried to there's an executive summary on page 2-7. Those are probably the most pertinent things in 2-8. But the bottom line, when we did this reserve study, it's the first complete reserve study we've had. And in the past, we've looked at pretty much the common area of the building. But it turns out, because we're responsible for the whole building, including all the interiors, we found a company that could do the interiors too. And they came to the conclusion that a fully funded reserve for Park Vista would be $2,247,000 roughly. And we've got about a $1.6 million reserve, so we're underfunded. I'm gonna have to put my glasses on. $1,647,000. They're recommending that we contribute $27,000 a month to reserves, which we don't have because we're an affordable housing facility, so we just don't generate that kind of income. And I'd like to also point out that this reserve study was done in the normal course of business, like a reserve study would be done for a condominium complex. And as you probably know, Park Vista, anything over, I think it's $5,000, has to go through Public Works, which significantly increases the cost of improvements. So I anticipate if we could have this done with someone who could do it with Public Works bidding, it would be a lot higher. Because if you take a look at that report, I believe for the purposes of this report, they had $230,000 to replace the roof, and 2 years ago we replaced it for 400. So if everything is off that much, you can see what our we formed a committee to look at ways that we might work on improving the cash flow situation at Park Vista, keeping in mind that it's an affordable rental situation, so we got to keep that in mind. And Jim Latta and I are on that committee, so we hope to bring some things forward in the next few months where we can make a significant impact to that. So, and Neil's here if you have any questions of our property manager.
Thank you very much, Marty. We're lucky to have you on the committee. Mike and I really appreciate it. I know you got like 40 years plus experience in development and property management, so thank you for all your expertise. And Jim Latta, who works for the city of Beverly Hills, spends a lot of time as well, so thanks. Any questions for Mr. Stone?
Yeah. Is that report on file?
You should have gotten a copy of it.
Did we get that? I don't remember getting that.
Jim turned it in, so if not,
You guys?
it's got the reserve study too, the complete reserve study.
Councilman Dugan and I have been privy to it just by way of the Park Vista meetings, but I don't think it came to all of us, so it'd be good to get that.
Okay.
And it's pretty dire, as you suggested. Any preliminary thoughts about, or is it too early to tell in terms of what could be done differently?
Well, the thing that we've discussed more than once is if our legal department could find a way where we could pull Park Vista out of needing to have all the work done through Public Works, it would make a huge difference in the cost of doing work there and the timeliness of getting work done. For example, I think, as I said, we had a firm bid to put a new roof on Park Vista through Neil, one of the roofers that he uses a lot for all the buildings he manages. It was $125,000, and when we ended up getting it done through Public Works, it was $400,000, and it was a lesser quality roof than the 125, and it took a fair amount of time to get that. And then we recently had some issues with decks, and it probably took 2 years to get those repaired, and they kept flooding every time it would rain, and there are elderly people in there, and we have to put them up and change the carpet. And right now we've put a request in to have the plumbing upgraded because the building's over 30 years old now. We've had over $50,000 worth of damage so far with plumbing leaks here and there in different spots in the building, so it really needs to be replumbed. So we're going to have to do that, and I think the reserve item for that is $600,000, but that's, again, who knows how close that's going to be to reality. So if we could find a way to pull Park Vista out of needing to go through Public Works for everything, we could get upstanding, reputable, bonded, licensed contractors to do the work, just like we do for all the other buildings that I own and Neil manages and other people have, and we could keep the building up at a significantly lower price than we're paying now, and it would be a lot more timely. Because to get stuff done timely through Public Works, it's got to get in their docket, and that makes it tough unless it's an emergency. So that would be the best thing we could do to help Park Vista over the long haul, because it's over 30 years old now, and buildings, as they get older and older, and it just gets worse and worse.
If I might weigh in on that a bit, Park Vista is really an arm of the city, considered a governmental entity, and so it has to go through Public Works. One of the things the city could do is disassociate itself, if you will, from Park Vista and turn it over to a nonprofit. There are a lot of nonprofit housing corporations out there that would get it out of the Public Works realm, but then the city would essentially lose all control over Park Vista, and that's a policy call.
So the downside would be the El Segundo resident requirement could potentially
that could go away. The control over rents, generally the nonprofit. The rents at Park Vista right now are actually below low income and the different levels set by the state as far as low, very low income affordability indexes. The rents there are below what the state sets. So a nonprofit housing corporation might come in and increase those rents. The city would lose control over those kind of issues. So there are some trade-offs.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for Marty? Mike?
Sounds like we have to create our own nonprofit.
Yeah.
I mean, is that a possibility?
Essentially that's what it is now, but the way the IRS looks at this is that since it's the city's nonprofit, it's part of the governmental entity. You would need to find a nonprofit not associated with the city.
Could you have a nonprofit with some covenants in place before you enter an agreement with them? Like El Segundo residency?
We could explore that potential. Yes.
Okay. That's encouraging. And this might be a question for Neil, but the council might appreciate, Mike and I know this, but can you give us a general sense of waiting list, how long it is, and what the rents are to start out there?
You thought you were going to get away scot-free, huh, Neil?
Sorry, Mr. Cadman.
The waiting list at the moment is about 70 people. It takes an average right now of about 2.5 years. It's tricky because there are some people who find themselves getting into Park Vista rather quickly because there's single units and then there's one-bedroom units. And the way our waiting list goes is that you're allowed to turn down a unit once. Second time you turn down a unit, you go to the bottom of the waiting list. And so there are people on our waiting list who have been on the list for 13 years. And they just keep getting put to the bottom of the list. So, the way that it operates right now, and Marty was touching this a little bit, is that rents at Park Vista are put at 50% of El Segundo market. So every October, we come through as the managing agent and we determine what we feel is El Segundo market rent for singles and one bedrooms. And then the rents are put at 50% of that for new incoming tenants. And then tenants that are there are based on rent increases as the board decides and then puts forth to City Council for approval. But right now, your specific question, it's about 70 people.
Okay, and just going in as a new tenant, what do the rents start at?
For a one-bedroom right now is about $850. Since one-bedroom units in El Segundo are roughly about $1,700 to cresting about $1,800. For singles, it's $635. Our average rent at Park Vista over the 96-odd units is roughly probably about around $500 for one-bedroom units and maybe about $425 to $440 for single units. The tenants will always notify the board, and if they come to your meetings, they'll notify you as well, is that Social Security increases are few and far between for our residents, and almost all of our residents are dependent on Social Security. And so, as Marty said, the income stream is challenging because you have operating costs that increase. Electricity, water, as you know, water has gone up quite a bit, and so the increases are not matching the expenses. But then the purpose of the facility is to provide affordable housing for El Segundo residents. So it really is sort of a catch-22 situation. When I came in 9 years ago, the facility was operating negative. And so it's quite a feat for this board and previous boards that we have $1.6 million. And that was also in conjunction with reworking some debt city. So the facility is healthy. It's just that this very responsible board is looking out over the course of the next 5, 10, 15 years of what is the future for Park Vista. And so I always believe that it's always best to decide those things now as to when you have that problem down the road.
Okay, any other questions?
No.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, item 4, consideration and possible action to receive and file an annual report of the Golf Course Subcommittee.
Mayor Pro Tem, members of the City Council, my name is John Goot. I'm a 49-year resident of El Segundo, currently live at 437 Maryland Street. I'm going to essentially read the annual report for the Golf Course Subcommittee. Our highest upcoming priority, as well as challenge from the past several years, is the unresolved Topgolf project and the future of the Lakes facility. The Lakes has been in a holding pattern, and the subcommittee remained a neutral body that is focused on supporting the management company through this period. It's evident that the uncertainty has negatively impacted the Lakes, created uneasiness among our customers, employees, and golf professionals. The Lakes has seen a downturn in visitors and subsequently revenue as a result of the insecurity of the facility. The clubhouse and driving range have deferred many repairs and improvements in an effort to be fiscally responsible with declining revenues and possibility of demolition in the near future. With a resolution to the Topgolf project on the horizon, the subcommittee stands committed to supporting a smooth transition if the project is approved. Subsequently, if the project is not approved, the subcommittee stands ready to help the City Council to assess the current condition of the facility, its operations, and the programs to ensure financial sustainability into the future. The golf management company, Lane Donovan Golf Partners, continues to keep the golf course in great playing condition and remains an inviting golf course for its regular customers and for new customers. The greens are in excellent condition. We review this on a monthly basis and get good comments on the greens, the overall course, and the grounds are very well maintained. The Lakes continues to host special events such as golf tournaments, weddings, celebrations, as well as weekly or monthly recurring meetings from local businesses and nonprofit organizations. Junior camps continue to grow and thrive, as do the El Segundo men's and women's golf clubs. The golf course subcommittee looks forward to a resolution so that we can focus on what's next for the golf experience in El Segundo. We do have a few statistics here to show the impact of this uncertainty. Looking at July 1st to June 30th, from 2015, 2016 to 2016-17, the same period, golf rounds played has decreased by 13%. Driving range cards sold has decreased by 26%. Driving range buckets sold has decreased by 33%. Golf tournaments has decreased by 24%. And catering events has seen an increase of 84%. And that's the annual report. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Goot. I think your group is also contemplating the future of the golf course itself and the management company. Do you have any insight there in terms of where you're at in the process, or how long, when we will address that, or your group will address that issue?
I believe that was set to discuss at the agenda today and also at the 15th, and I'm not sure if any of that has changed or not. But I'm also on the committee for the golf course redesign, yes.
Okay, thank you. Mike, can you touch on that?
So your question again was?
I'd heard that the management contract, we've been with that firm for quite some time, for the golf course management itself would be under review at some point. And just wondering where we're at in that process.
So Meredith can maybe speak to this too, but we have to address how we're going to maintain the course if there is a closure, right? You have to continue to maintain the greens and the grasses, so there's going to be an expense there, and I'm not sure how we're contracted right now. I think we're planning on using the greenskeeper facilities that Lane Donovan provide to us, so they have the expertise for the grass management. So but there is, I don't think we do have a new contract set up with them yet, so we haven't done that. That's something that's on the to-do list, I think. So
Staff would like to have a conversation with council and with the golf subcommittee about going out to an RFP to look at alternatives for management of the facility, and also restructuring the deal, to be quite honest, to build in more incentives rather than just sort of a base rate of pay for the services. To your first statement, council member, staff has been working with Lane Donovan and we've received a proposal to maintain the facility if Topgolf is approved, and there needs to be maintenance during the construction, and we're negotiating the terms of that interim agreement right now.
Okay, any other questions? Mr. Goot, thank you very much for your
Thank you
time
very
and
much.
volunteering.
Thanks, John.
All right, number 5, consideration and possible action to adopt the revised Library of Trustees bylaws of July 11th, 2017, which changed the Library Board of Trustees term of office from serving 2 3-year terms to no cap on the term of office. Every 3 years, seated board members may participate in the interview process with the city council before possible reappointment.
Your description pretty much describes the action here. It is to remove the term limits and to allow for people to serve without a term.
I move
Term limit.
approval.
Second. You want discussion on this?
Yeah, just, do we have any term limits on other committees and things?
No, not specifically related to this type of thing. There are some terms that apply to some of the seats that council members serve on or that council members serve on that then come off of council. But as far as the boards and commissions that council appoints people to, I believe this was the only one that had term limits.
And the reason for that was?
They said there was something in the government or education code, and I asked them to go find that. And next thing we know,
Came back with a blank piece of paper?
yeah.
I'll second.
Okay, we had a second, but thank you. You'll third. But does the, Deborah, does the department head support this as well?
Yep.
Thought you were asking for a second. You're in charge.
Yes, the board and the department supports this.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4-0. Okay, thank you. Number 6, consideration and possible action to increase the number of members from 7 to 11 for the Arts and Culture Advisory Committee and alter the selection process for new members in that they would be interviewed by the committee and, if selected, submitted to the City Council for approval. Okay.
Did it describe that one too?
Yes, this is an item that was requested by Dr. Brand. Staff conducted the research. Meredith Pettit can provide any details or opinions if you would like to hear those before you take an action.
Now, this one is different than our current protocol in that the committee itself would interview potential members, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, you guys are both on that, Carol and Don. Would you talk about
Right. So we're at a low ebb right now. We've lost 2 members of the 7. One was appointed to the Planning Commission by the council here, and the other one was not able to participate. So we went from 7 to 5. We need 4 for a quorum. We only made that at the last meeting because Ava Sweeney Skyped in from Germany, and we barely made it. But the committee would like to be larger, more diverse in age and abilities and activities in the city, and would like to avoid some of the bureaucracy of trying to go through the process here as we're trying to name people to so many committees. Every month we're working on a different group or 2. So the idea here is to add people to the committee that are active in the arts in town. And we've got 3 applications on file, and we also, in the initial selection, passed maybe 4 or 5 people who wanted to get on. We could look at them again also. So this is to streamline this, to make it more relevant, and to let it move forward.
And pretty much all the members of the committee are for this decision because they felt that, the arts covers so many aspects, and it's important that we bring in expertise or knowledge from many different facets, and so that we can encompass art throughout the city holistically.
Yeah, there's a lot of ideas there and a lot of good intentions, and it's just needs to get up to speed so it can go forward with its first few items on its agenda.
Right. And I think partnership with the downtown committee will be a positive
Right,
win
and there
for them.
was a slot there for a member to be on that that Sam talked about earlier. That's good.
Yeah.
Councilmember Dugan, comments?
What are they doing to bring the Rams to El Segundo?
That's EDAC, that's Al's
Oh,
committee.
Okay, that's a wrong.
Wrong committee?
Okay.
Part of his
Fine.
strategic
Well,
plan.
We can work on that.
That's as cultural as I get, remember that.
Okay, so someone want to
So
make
I'll
a
make
motion?
a motion to move it.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, 4-0. Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you. Consent agenda. Where is the language about reading them all? Oh, we have nothing on the
You
consent
Any
agenda.
polls?
No, wait.
Any polls?
Yes, any polls on the, from the consent agenda?
None here?
Just on this 10, what logo are we talking about here? Is it the current logo, potentially the new logo, or they don't care about the logo, they just want to be like our new police cars?
Don, would you read the one you just pulled,
Yeah.
please?
Consideration and possible action to approve the use of the City of El Segundo logo and vehicle graphics of the El Segundo Fire and Police Departments on a new special edition Hot Wheels die-cast replica toy fire and police vehicles to be designed and produced by Mattel's. Since we're right on the cusp of possibly changing the logo, I just want, and maybe they don't care which one they put on there, they just want our permission to put something. That's cool.
So council asked us to look into changing the logo. Staff decided, consistent with our approach to dealing with these types of issues now, to do a survey. We have a survey that's currently circulating for people to respond to, which logo they like, or do they want to go a totally separate direction. We plan on bringing the results of that survey and a recommendation to council on September 5th. So I think we could ask Mattel to hold off on selecting a logo until after September 5. And I don't, Chief, are they aware of the potential logo change, and do they have a preference?
Well, they were discussing were logos for the fire department particularly, and what they were looking to do is there's a fire engine that they had mass produced years ago. They wanted to do a utility vehicle, which was mocking our current utility vehicles that had the fire department logos on them. So we were talking strictly about the fire department markings for our apparatus. It was not related to that, sir. And it was fire department markings and the police department markings on new toys that they like to mass produce.
They'll be true collector's items if we change.
Okay, I don't think there were any other polls. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, items 7, 8, and 9?
So move.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, 4-0. Okay. All right.
I'll move approval of 10 or do we have that? I mean, okay, I'll move approval of item 10.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 4-0. Thank you, Dr. Brand. New business, number 11, consideration and possible action to authorize the city manager to execute a contract amendment with the Phelps Group, DBA Phelps, for expanded economic development and hospitality and tourism marketing services. Fiscal impact for fiscal year 16-17, $565,000 in economic development division advertising and publishing budget and Chevron grant fund expenditures. So I know we've got Al Kiahi, the chairman of EDAC here, and Phelps represented. Who's going to present on this matter, Greg?
I will start, and then Phelps will join in. As the description mentioned, this is the city's comprehensive marketing efforts for business attraction, retention, and travel and tourism for the remainder of this fiscal year and for all of next fiscal year. Council, in your joint meeting on July 19th with EDAC, you heard this proposal. You heard EDAC's recommendation. There was general agreement that there was the scope was appropriate as far as the approach, but there were concerns about some of the pricing. So the EDAC's action was to approve the scope of work, refer the pricing to their marketing subcommittee for a recommendation and potential revisions. The marketing committee met the next day, the 20th of July. They recommended some changes, so the scope that's being proposed tonight is slightly different than what council last saw. The recommendation was to pull the website development out of the scope of work to get additional bids and proposals for that piece. You'll see tonight that Phelps proposes to maintain the current website until it's replaced as part of their scope of work. The management fee structure was reworked and reduced. And the recommendation was from the marketing committee was to put some additional funds towards ad buys, or internet ads and directed ad buys with respect to ad placement. And Aaron Colling and Kristen Bergvin from Phelps are here to walk you through the proposal.
And before they get going here, so essentially same dollar amount, but more bang for our buck in terms of advertising dollars and pulling the website out for now as well. Is that right?
Reduced some reduction in the total cost and more bang for our buck as far as where the monies are being placed.
Thank you.
Also, how about the website? Is that pulling the website out of it as well?
Yes.
Okay.
And this $565,000, that's not county, and it's over and above the 25,000, and then was it 60?
That is correct.
Over and above
Right.
that 85,000.
And that's broken out between monies from the Chevron account and general fund dollars. I believe the general fund dollars that are being proposed are $265,000, with the remainder coming from the Chevron grant funds.
The 565 is broken out that way.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Phelps, thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. And just to clarify that this proposal is for 14 months. It's the 2 months remaining in this fiscal year 17 and then the entire 12-month period of fiscal year 18. And as we've discussed, this proposal is to drive awareness and interest in support of 2 initiatives for the city, continuing the new business attraction work that we have been doing, increasing the marketing momentum for the city, and initiating a brand new hospitality and tourism effort. And that's going to require developing a strong foundation of the messaging and the marketing platform for that, and then again, initiating a brand new marketing strategy, all in an effort to get our target audiences to choose El Segundo. The new business attraction targets being, as we discussed before, commercial real estate brokers, business owners, executives and decision makers, and foreign direct investment. And what we're really looking to speak to these people on is highlighting the competitive advantages of doing business in El Segundo, growing the recognition of the city's broad scope of offerings, and building positive word of mouth and endorsements from the influencers. And for hospitality and tourism, we're looking at increasing knowledge to the greater community in the business traveler sector and acquiring more tourists and Angelinos to come here, really making this a go-to destination for those LAX-bound travelers and the Angelino day trippers, expressing to them what the latest hotels, restaurants, retail, and attractions are here and why they'd want to come here. And the results from all of these efforts that we've been considering are this positive impact on the entire El Segundo ecosystem. We're going to be affecting the service businesses that are here, hotels, restaurants, retail, events, attractions, and ultimately increase tax revenue from all of those efforts that are going to be able to assist in more city services for residents. Now, the overall strategy for the work that we're going to be doing is not to start all over again, but to definitely leverage the existing content, creative, the logos, the website that you have right now for new business attraction, and maximize and integrate all the opportunities that you see down here driving into the website. So media relations and social media, which Kristen will be talking about shortly, and also driving people in through paid search, which Greg was talking about, that increasing these paid ads to drive people into our website to learn more about the city, and really maximizing the emails and newsletters that we have in effect, and then all driving down to a desired action or a key performance indicator, as we call that. And most importantly, for hospitality and tourism, we're going to be spending the next 6 to 8 weeks on some very important research, brand positioning, and creative development for hospitality to really differentiate you, and we'll go into that in just a couple minutes. But I did want to underscore for new business attraction, we are a very measurement-focused agency, and the objectives that we're focusing on for new business attraction are already inherent in the current website. There is a form here where people can opt into your newsletter or create an inquiry form, write a question, and every submission in this page goes directly to Barbara Voss, your economic development manager. So there's a direct line of contact to people who are inherently interested in bringing their business or learning more about El Segundo. And the SOAR newsletter was recently redesigned. It is much more mobile friendly, much more attuned to the audience that we're trying to reach these days. And we're going to be proposing 10 times a year to send out this newsletter. There's approximately 1,100 subscribers right now, which is a very engaged audience. You can see here the latest email that we sent out had 28% open rate and a 22% click-through rate. So they're very interested in what's going on here, and we want to grow that number and get them to tell their associates. The other KPI that we have is a Smart Business Move Guide. This is a PDF which was recently reworked. It all has very current information, went from 2015 stats and information to 2017. So this is a very informative guide, and people can download this from the website directly. So we're measuring those and counting those engagements. Now for hospitality and tourism, we have to step back a little bit. We have no online presence. We have no collateral. We have no material. We don't really have even a message to tell people right now about why it is they should come here, even though there are so many tremendously great things here. So what we're going to be doing is, really looking at what it is we can say to these people. We have some tremendous opportunities right now. This is what Century Boulevard looks like. People coming to LAX do not want to stay in that. Right down the street, there's a wonderful option in El Segundo with your new hotels, but it's not going to stay like that forever. Pretty soon, they're going to be, in a few years' time, this improvement, and it's going to be driving people not down to El Segundo, but it's going to be directing people out and away from you. We need to take advantage of that now. You have the Kings and the Lakers, obviously, very big presence here, but pretty soon you're going to be having the Rams and the Chargers in their new stadium. You're going to be having a Super Bowl in 2022, and now we know that 2028 there's going to be the Olympics, and all of those things are going to be, people are going to be flying into this hub, LAX, right here next door to you. They're going to be going to venues around here. They're going to be looking for places to stay, and we really want to change people's perceptions about El Segundo and that this is a destination when they come to Los Angeles, and get them in the habit of that prior to these big events. And this is not lost on your neighbors. They are upgrading their facilities. They are eyeing all of these big landmark events, and they are also going to be trying very, very hard to draw those dollars and those people to them. So what does this involve? It's going to start with some research and discovery and really understanding what your El Segundo brand is, what target audiences are looking for, what your competitors are doing. And then we're going to define a brand positioning, we call it, for the El Segundo hospitality, which is ownable, differentiated, and can create an emotional connection with people. And then the creative from that will express the brand, create recognition, preference, and loyalty. And obviously we want to establish some sort of definitive performance objective when we have an online presence for hospitality, that people are signing up for a newsletter or they're linking out to different hotels to understand reservation policies or rates and things. And we'll be looking for your stakeholder input on this, obviously. EDAC, Hospitality and Tourism Task Force, city officials, hotels and restaurants, retail and attractions, the Arts and Culture Council, and residents. And then that research will continue with competitor positioning, third-party sources on target audiences and trends in the hospitality markets, and then online survey and intercepts with the people that we are looking to attract here. All of this confluence into a brand positioning statement, which will ensure that what we do is relatable to these people and immediately makes a connection with them, with the personality, the tone of voice that we develop, that they want to make the choice to come here. And then from there, we'll be doing creative, which again will be leveraging the current El Segundo logo and that is used for new business attraction, ensuring that that look and feel is resonating with the new people who we want to come here and is complementary to the new business attraction services. We don't want a lot of disparate looks and feels for El Segundo. We really want everybody to think about them as one. And then we'll be creating a city map and or a brochure that's to be determined at this point, but something tangible that can be utilized by the hotels, the retailers, and also can be an element on the online presence for people to download and really get to learn and understand about the city and what's here. And as I said before, our overall strategy is to drive these target audience members to your websites, to your online presence, to understand what it is that's exciting about this place and why they want to learn more about it and engage with you. And those methods that we're going to be using are paid search, public and media relations, and social media. And over the last 4 months that we've had the pleasure of working with your city, we have been driving paid search audience members to your website, and right now it accounts for about 50% of the people coming to the website here in blue. Green is organic search, and red is direct search, and that means someone typing in elsegundobusiness.com. So that means that they've already heard about you, whether it be through a paid search ad or some other newsletter or some other efforts that we've been doing, and now they're coming back and they're visiting the website. So in July, we saw 927 users, individual people coming to the website, which is a 16% increase over 4 months ago when we started. They came 1,088 times to the website. That means they came back, they saw something, they thought about it, they wanted to learn something more. So these are very positive numbers, and we see how beneficial paid search is to driving people to the website. And with that inviting message, that call to action, asking people to learn more and or call us directly, we have, in July, 82% of the people who visited the website had never been there before. So that is a tremendous opportunity. We have currently a $107 cost per lead based on what we spend on the paid search campaign. So that means every time someone completes one of the forms I showed you earlier, or downloads the PDF, or even clicks the phone number from their mobile phone in the ad to call Barbara Boss, then that is a conversion, and that's obviously a very good opportunity to be able to attract those people here and speak with them directly about why it would be a good choice to come choose El Segundo. And just a little bit about our paid search strategy. I know that is a lot on this one slide here, but for new business attraction, we really look at 4 key factors when we're devising this paid media plan. It's the device. We really look to have a mobile-friendly engagement with people on paid search. We see that some people are even, we're assuming they're touring businesses in El Segundo because we see that they're coming from a phone from a zip code within El Segundo, clicking on a paid search ad. They're inquiring, they're searching online for information about starting a business here or moving a business here. And 7% of clicks to date are from phones. So again, very important for us to stay mobile friendly and stay current with this audience. And the intent is another major factor for this. It's relevant keywords, bid to performance. That means that we're really watching those ads that perform best and optimizing and modifying the campaign to take advantage of those. Negative keywords, taking out words that don't really fit with what our audience we're seeking people to come do, not what is a business license and things like that. We really want people to understand that when they click on that, they're going to be learning more about office space and about potential and about the workplace in general. 62% of clicks actually have El Segundo in the keyword, so you have a lot of people out there who are looking specifically for you. But we're also going to be focusing on people who may just be looking at Los Angeles. We want to broaden that range. We don't want to just go after the people who already know about you. We want to go after the people who are looking to move a business or grow a business in greater Los Angeles and draw them in with our ads. We even see that some of the leads, some people who have inquired, sent an inquiry form, or downloaded the PDF were from New York, Chicago, Edmonton, Canada. So we're really going to be looking at the wider scope of geographic regions that are possibilities. And then, of course, the ad creative, the copy, the words that we say to sell El Segundo, we're really going to be maximizing that for the real estate industry, creating local iterations of that, and making sure that by device, whether it's mobile or desktop, that they're able to see your message up top. It's going to be on the above the fold and not way down the page, and that ad rotation stays current. And we see that we have a 2.1% click-through rate from ads to date, which is very promising. Now, when there is a website available for hospitality and tourism, we're going to be going at that really strong. And what we're going to be looking at is USA and Canada, people who are exploring a trip to Los Angeles, all the keywords that are involved, we all know what they are when you're planning a trip, looking for hotels near airports and such, promoting our central location, highlighting the activities that are here, and obviously measuring the efficacy and the optimization of the campaign. That's something we take very seriously. We monitor these campaigns on a daily basis, and we optimize them on a weekly and a monthly basis. And we also report to the economic development manager on a monthly basis about the results. And I will turn it over to Kristen to talk about media relations and social.
Good evening. Thanks for having us. For media relations, as we know, that is garnering third-party endorsement from journalists. So myself and the team work directly with the journalists to help us tell the stories. So from the new business attraction side, the past few months we've been able to work with different stakeholders here in the city to work on getting different stories to help illustrate the opportunities that are here. Everything from commercial real estate brokers to new businesses that are coming in. So continuing to work with all the different stakeholders here to continue to tell our story to the commercial real estate folks. Wall Street Journal, New York Times Local, Lauren Herstock is here, and she has a square feet column, to Cranes, to those publications that our target audience is reading. So over the past few months, we've had some success working with Globe Street. They did a great interview with Barbara Voss to highlight the campaign that is happening and all of the opportunities that are here for that space, to working directly with some of the business owners and people that have grown their business here and looking at different and unique ways to get into publications. So this one example is Ethan Brown over at Beyond Meat, and this specific column talks about what he likes to wear to work and what items make him comfortable. So always looking at those different opportunities to get into the publications for further exposure for El Segundo. We've also we've partnered with the businesses that have come in. We partnered with Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong to help them with their press conference. And a big thank you to Meredith. We've emailed and, just bringing the stakeholders together for all the different parts that make the press conference. And obviously getting media here. So we had KCAL and CBS here to cover that, along with coverage in the Los Angeles Business Journal, our friends at the Daily Breeze. And then just a really elevated look and feel to the press conference as well. A really great step and repeat with the Institute's logo. So it's all behind there and covered in the news coverage as well. And then working with the chamber and doing the ribbon cutting. So having all the key stakeholders up there, and part of this is a big part. So that is communicated in the media as well. And for the folks that were there, we moved some of the speaking inside because it was a very hot day. And then the Institute and the doctors did tours for the different stakeholders and for the journalists as well. So then switching gears to hospitality and tourism, it's a different set of media and journalists that we would outreach to, different types of publications and stories that we would, that we're telling. And everything from those, what am I going to do this weekend, time out publications, to the longer stories of what's happening in this city with Los Angeles Magazine, to INLA. I know that they've done a few stories lately on different businesses down here. We want to continue working with that producer and doing longer pieces and shows on what is happening down here, to outreaching further to those publications that are within the travel area for the day trips or for the weekend trips up here to El Segundo. We have a lot to offer, from arts and culture to great places to stay to wonderful places to eat and drink. So we want more profiles. Sure, you guys probably saw the Westways article that came out. Something in that vein. We were not part of that. That was in the works, as we started helping out. However, we did outreach to the editors and let them know that we have any and all information and however we can help. But just as an example, those types of pieces in our radius of media. And then working with local travel freelancers. There are a lot of freelance journalists that are here that work for a multitude of magazines across the U.S. and even into Canada, and working with the hotels to see if we can do an overnight stay, and then do a curated tour of the different parts of El Segundo. That's something we can work together with the stakeholders to put together for them to help them tell our story here. And then once a destination campaign is researched and conceived, we definitely want to get that word out there as well of what we're doing to promote the city. So we come back at it from a business angle. So there's the fun things to do, what's happening here, but then we also want to look at it from a business angle as well. So we're always looking at those different ways to get the story out there. And everyone that we've been fortunate enough to be working with has been really great in providing us information, from the fire department's 100th birthday celebration and the swearing in of several new folks, and the parade. We were able to get KBC down here to help tell that story, and then the new police chief swearing in, we had NBC down here. So continuing to work with everyone closely to help tell those stories and getting the media alert out. And one thing that's been great is just reigniting and reworking with those news assignment editors and the local journalists to let them know and stay top of mind. So when they are working on things, we are here to be of assistance as well. And then from the tourism and hospitality and tourism side, again, always looking at many different angles and stories we can get out there. So from the best brunches that we can be a part of to the best shopping. We worked with Jenny Peters that writes for USA Today on including the point on the best places to shop in Los Angeles to, getting art walk mentions. So again, looking at all the things that are happening from the different angles and knowing who we need to get that information to as soon as possible to hopefully be included in their stories. And then one thing that we are working on for next week is this Elite Yelp event down here in downtown. We've been working with some really great partners, and we have about 120 elite Yelpers coming in, and they will be experiencing different restaurants and eats and bites and sips here. And a lot of, most are extremely prolific on their social media channels. So, and taking the information back to their local communities that are based around here. So we're really excited about that, and all the partners we've been working with have been fantastic. And then social media. This is from the organic side, so it's working with the LinkedIn page and then also the Facebook page, and creating a content calendar and strategy behind the information that we want to share. So looking ahead for the month, knowing the key pieces of information that we want to slot in from both the hospitality and tourism side, so a lot of the great events that the city has, and then also from the business side of which ones make sense more on, having a LinkedIn strategy versus a Facebook, which ones cross over, how do we write and craft those messages to get out there. So then when we have a monthly calendar and strategy behind it, when additional stories come in or other pieces of information we want to share, we can slot those in. So there's an overall strategy behind it, but it allows us to be flexible to get additional information out there. So it's everything from writing the posts and tagging them correctly to having those assets, the videos, the photos, that type of thing. And then, of course, taking a look at the metrics and seeing how those are doing. So since we started helping out in July, we've increased Facebook impressions by 11%, and fans have increased by 44%. And then for LinkedIn, we've increased the connections by 86%. So we have more folks following, and that's all purely from just organic posts. And I know that within the paid plan that Aaron's going to touch on, there is a component for paid Facebook, so that will help boost these numbers as well. But folks will follow us because we're providing great information that gives them great background on the different areas that they're looking for.
As you can see, there's a lot of great momentum that we want to keep building upon, both for new business attraction, and we're very excited about the prospects for hospitality and tourism. The proposed budget here is the same as in the statement of work that you have. And for fiscal year 17, for the next 2 months, we're really going to be pressing forward with a lot of the research that I explained earlier. So starting from the top, the public and media relations, the paid search, that's including both the strategy, the management, and the paid media costs. The owned social, that's the Facebook and LinkedIn work that was just described, developing the content and executing the SOAR newsletter would be 2 issues of that. Website management for the existing new business attraction website. So that's updating it with current information and managing that monthly hosting. And then we get into the research for hospitality and tourism, the stakeholder and target discovery, brand positioning and key messaging, and the communications plan that we derive from that, which will be leveraged throughout the next fiscal year. And then the creative concepting and the collateral, the map, the brochure that we spoke about for hospitality, and then account leadership strategy and management to execute and manage all of these projects. And event management, which is focused on the Champions of Business celebration, which is coming up at the end of September, but also for any partner events or press conferences that may come up. And then for FY18, again, public and media relations, the paid search, and including the actual media cost. And then next item is paid social, and that is what Kristen mentioned. We'll be adding on a layer of Facebook ads that are paid, driving for mainly hospitality and tourism, managing the own social channels, the SOAR newsletter continuing at 10 times a year, website management, and that does include for both the potential hospitality and tourism site and the new business attraction site that exists now and may be existing in a new incarnation as the year progresses. The account leadership strategy and management over the course of the year, and event management, again, for press conferences, partner events, and the Champions of Business celebration. And that is our presentation. Any questions?
Thank you, Aaron and Kristen. Questions?
Mayor Pro Tem, if I could just summarize from the city's perspective, you know, the big questions are why are we doing this and how do we measure success? You know, the why questions really are about assisting our businesses, creating jobs, creating development opportunities, shopping opportunities, dining opportunities for our residents, and generating revenues back to the city to provide services back to our residents and our businesses. Those are the sort of the big reasons why we think this is important. And as far as how we measure success, what is this effort generating for us? Currently, we measure 18 key metrics in economic development: vacancy rates, job creations, revenue generation, those types of things, building permit revenues. We do intend to use the STAR report, which is focused specifically on the hotel market and gets down geographically to the El Segundo level. So by using the STAR report, we'll know we'll have a baseline and we'll be able to measure growth in hotel stays, the average daily rate, that type of thing.
Does the STAR report benchmark against surrounding communities as well?
I believe we can do that, yes.
Okay.
Now, I know the EDACT subcommittee reviewed the budget, and what was their findings as a result of that?
My understanding is that they approved the budget as amended, and our chairperson, interim chairperson Al Kiahi is here if he wants to respond specifically to their discussions.
Al, if you don't mind, I'd love to hear, as chair of the EDAC group, you got a great group of people, 17 or 18 members. Can you just talk about how the process unfolded with your group?
Yeah, they met the very next day. We looked at the various costs, and one of them obviously was the websites. So we're looking at, rather than putting it into the proposal, looking at a estimated costs of what we would do with the current site, what needs to be updated because it's not mobile applicable. So we want to change it. And then obviously the development of the hospitality and tourism site. I think the original dollars that came out of that was like around $50,000 for the current site to update and keep that going. And then building a new site for the hospitality and tourism was around $75,000. Then we're looking at putting the various elements together for the websites. We want to have our committee come up with some ideas on the elements. Also talk to the Phelps group with the elements of the website. Put those two together, merge, purge, and then put an RFP out to see how that could come about.
Because I did notice it's still at $44,000.
That's on the management side of the site. It's not the cost of the site itself.
Managing of what of the site?
Well, you have to do all of the different work processes that the Phelps group would be doing in the site, making sure things are being managed correctly within the whole area and what the leads are coming in and all of that coming, happening. And then keep in mind, that's not a 12-month operation, it's a 14-month operation.
I know you're gonna keep the website intact.
The
You like
current-
the creative, you wanna make it mobile responsive down the line, that'll go through an RFP process. There's a website management process that Carol's talking about. Does that include updating, like there's a new event and the content creation, kind of the authoring of the site?
Yes, so it'll cross over for a new business attraction. It'll be, until you have a new website ready, it'll be maintaining the current website, updating the content, the monthly hosting, any sort of troubleshooting that needs to happen. Maybe we want to change some things around. We'll see that sometimes things break on a website. You know, it's just a general management and maintenance of that website. And then when there is a new website, it's actually going to involve some of our time to help with whoever is chosen to create the website, to consult with them on what we have learned to date, to develop that in the best manner possible. And then the idea is for that hosting to come back to our domain, and then Phelps would again manage that new website and the content and all of that and keeping it up to date. A website is a living, breathing thing. It needs touching every single day. So there's that aspect for new business attraction. That's the entire 14 months. And then for hospitality and tourism, what we've accounted for is approximately 9 months of the FY18 fiscal year after the website is built.
And the marketing committee with, as you know, Mike Mothner was involved with that. He was totally for the costs. He knew, he totally got it. We were a little bit hard on the Phelps Group in getting their management fees down. So I think after some discussion with their folks and their CFO, they were able to adjust some numbers for us and get to where we.
So, question maybe for Joe Lilio about sources for paying for this. So we have money on account from Chevron covering 2 different fiscal years, and no promise of any additional grant from Chevron for 17-18. And then we have money from the transient occupancy tax here, went up 50% in 2016. Is any of the transient occupancy tax revenues being used from 17-18, or are we working off of 16-17's funds?
Correct. We're working off of 16-17. So Barbara has quite a bit of funds available in her economic development account. She's used very little of them so far. So what we're doing is encumbering those funds now, and we'll request a continued appropriation before council sometime after the budget is adopted.
For 17-18 year.
Correct.
And what's the estimated annual revenue expected to be for the TOT at the 12%?
So for this year, we budgeted $9.6 million. Next year, 17-18, with addition of some new hotels, we're anticipating about $11 million.
Because originally we were saying if you pass, what was it, B, measure B or something? If you pass that, city will get estimated like $3.2 million more dollars.
Correct.
A fiscal year. And how's that coming out? Are we getting that, or what portion of it?
Yeah, so for 17-18, again, we're anticipating, so far the numbers we're working up is about $11 million. That's, trying to remember what the budget was for 15-16, but I know it is above that dollar amount that you.
So that's several million more than we were getting when it was at 8%.
Correct, and also because we have the addition of new
More
hotels
rooms,
coming online.
Right. Okay, and then I'm trying to remember back. The original proposal was to put $240,000 of that into this program before we got delayed. And we did end up doing that in the budget for 16-17.
Correct.
So is that going to be a recommendation for 17-18, another 240, or you're not sure yet?
So that's going to be a policy decision that the council will need to make. Do we do that in 17-18 as well? Again, Barbara has not really used a lot of those funds yet in 16-17, so we're going to carry those over
Right.
to 17-18.
So we'll have quite a bit on account, because
will.
all this money's coming out of donated money or money we've already gathered.
Correct.
And that takes us all the way till October of 18.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Just want to be sure I was lining all that up. Thank you.
And I just have one question. So we're making sure that as far as the hospitality, that we're going to be partnering with the chamber and their downtown, their hospitality group, and so there's continuity in our marketing as a community.
Mike?
Just from the simpleton side of this, you speak to a lot of metrics on click-throughs and things that mean very little to a guy of Social Security age here, but ultimately, I'd like to see some kind of a concept that says, we're investing, $500,000 here. How do the people walking down Main Street, how do the residents here, how do they know that we're getting a return on that? I guess that's a simple question here. And how do I know that I'm getting a return on that? Click-through doesn't get it. So is there something else that we're looking at?
I know Al's group talked about increase of potential room nights for the hotels and trying to extrapolate how many additional hotel room nights you'd need to break even on this proposal, and is working on some of that stuff. I think the STAR report too, if we're getting STAR report information, we know how many rooms we're booking, how we're doing relative to our surrounding area, because that's the key. I mean, these things change on a macro level, then that'll give us a sense as well. I have a similar concern. I'd like to see it distilled down to one or two key metrics that we could go, yes, we are definitely affecting this with the program.
Well, we're definitely going to be working with city manager and the economic development manager to be able to take it beyond what you see right here, what we're immediately affecting, which are leads, people who are coming, inquiring, interested in coming here for whether it's the hospitality side or whether it's the new business attraction side, but taking that another level with them and coming up with a quantifiable number of increased taxes and increased revenue for the city. So we don't have that established just yet, but that is certainly something we're working toward this year.
And Erin said something when she was reporting there about now's the time to really go for it because Century Boulevard's messed up, right? And they're in a weakened state, and now's when we can come on and get our platform down before they get that dressed up.
Right, exactly. And it's all around you. As Al was just mentioning to me, Manhattan Beach updating their hotels. Everyone is eyeing the potential that's going to be happening in this city now through the next 10 years and beyond. And you have a small base of new hotels right now that are very attractive to people. You have exponential coverage on and buzz about your office space and about business opportunities here. So all of those things converging with a lot of messaging out there and reaching those right people and telling them that's going to just elevate everything. And we think, we agree. Now is the time. We've learned a lot about your city. We're very excited to represent it, and we're very excited to tell the world about what the potential is here.
Yeah, I think Al, you have something more to add?
I just thought I'd comment on that because as a hotelier myself, I mean, our hotel ratings are around the 3-star. And in order to get the ADR up, you need to get a higher rating hotels. What Manhattan Beach and the other surrounding cities are going to be doing, and especially on Century Boulevard, is they're bringing up 4-star and 5-star properties, okay, which means higher rates. The Marriott in this right now is going under construction to go to a 5-star, probably become a JW. So I'm just saying that from a marketing positioning standpoint, we need to start looking at development in that arena. I mean, it's nice to have the Hampton Inns and all of that, but we need to start looking at the Intercontinentals, and we need to start looking at different brands, because that's how you bring the brand of El Segundo to a higher level, and then you bring in more tax revenue. So something to think about.
I think it's interesting. And the parallel for me, Al, is when I look at our retail, we've got some really high-end. We got Lululemon, we had BB. I can tell you from my business, we're servicing closed businesses, accounts every week. We're shutting down businesses. So I get really concerned about our reliability or vulnerability to the retail in terms of sales tax for the revenue for the city. And I do think time is of the essence to try and get as much of the hotel and the restaurant business as possible, because retail is changing every day right now.
It's interesting that my conversation with the Hackman Group about 3 months ago, they were asking what could possibly be done in what they're doing. I said, have you considered a 5-star hotel? And they stopped for about 30 seconds before they answered me. And I don't think they knew what to say. And I think that's a consideration that they should be looking at, because most people think 5-star hotels need to be on the ocean. They don't need to be on the ocean in today's market. They can be in any, it's an entire guest experience within the facility itself.
Thanks, Al.
Al,
Carol?
how many stars does the Marriott have in Manhattan Beach?
It's about the 4-star property, but if you take it up to a JW Marriott style, it's going to be 5-star, and I think the restaurants and everything else will change. But I know there's a huge revamp on that property.
Is there any proposal on file for the land between the Point and the theaters?
Nothing that I know of. That's part of Continental Development, and I think there's some thoughts that's going on with that.
Yeah, thank you.
Did you want to touch on that?
I was just going to respond that we are meeting with them and talking about concepts for the former Air Products property that you're referring to.
Great.
And I should add that if Barbara were here, unfortunately she couldn't be here tonight, but I think she would tell the council that she's been very pleased in working with the Phelps Group over this temporary period of time for the last several months, and we've found them to be very professional and very responsive to staff's requests.
I'm impressed. I mean, we're going to spend 7 times about what we've spent so far, and I've seen results on the small amount that Phelps has had to work with, from the Automobile Club's Westways that showed up in my mailbox to watching Ion LA 2 straight Sundays, features on El Segundo. I can see the impact and how it's all tying together. It's really great.
Okay, any other questions for Aaron, Kristen, and Al? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Al. Do we have to give a motion there or something?
Yeah, so I think we are considering a motion to approve the budget as it's been recommended by the Economic Development Advisory Council.
And then advising,
Go ahead, Mike, what were you saying?
I was just gonna make sure we got that right here, so it's, we're approving the budget number and then for the city manager to take action on a contract, correct?
Is that right, Tracy? Okay, yes.
Yes,
you got
I'll
it.
make that move. So moved.
Second, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, 4-0, okay, thank you.
Take
All
the
right.
rest of the night off.
All right, we're going on to reports. City Manager Greg Carpenter.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyles, you'd asked for staff to respond to some issues around Clutter's Bluff, and I thought I would just give you an update on that. Since the beginning of the year, and we began hearing complaints about this issue, we did post signs. We posted the curfew signs, which allowed for increased enforcement. The police department has significantly increased their enforcement and presence in the area, and Captain Turnbull is here if you have questions about that. We've increased the cleaning schedule at the park because there are issues around trash, particularly on the weekends. So we're taking measures to address the cleanliness and condition of the park. We have been working with LAX, the airport, and their real estate folks and government affairs folks to see if there are issues related to employees parking on Imperial Avenue and crossing the street in a kind of an unsafe manner out on Imperial Highway. So those conversations are continuing. We're also negotiating with LAX to help us try to identify some parking issues, and hopefully we'll have a resolution of that settlement soon that will get us some assistance around looking at parking issues. We are still getting complaints and concerns about that, though. So the police department is in the process of scheduling a community meeting. We want to hear what concerns or what issues are occurring out there and see what possible solutions there are for issues that continue to occur. So police department will schedule and will announce and advertise the upcoming community meeting. I think we're looking at August 21st as a possible Monday, August 21st. as a possible date for that, and we'll confirm. And we'll report back to council on what we heard and possible solutions.
Okay, and that would be a community meeting open to the neighbors there, that we said. And has the police department been forwarded some of the correspondence that we've received from residents?
I believe they've seen everything that's on the Parents Network and on Facebook.
There have been some emails as well, so I don't know if you all have received them. I certainly have. Maybe we can make it a point to forward those along to you so that Chief
Sure.
Whalen has, okay. Yeah, so August 21st, there'll be a meeting, and let's ensure anyone that lives on that block, they'll be contacted, right? Because I want to make sure we have great representation for that meeting. There's a lot of concern about that.
Is there any way we could send them a letter, like in the mail, via mail, to those addresses to notify them of the?
Captain Turnbull, thank you.
We can look at mail or just direct putting them in their mailboxes with city personnel.
I mean, some of the feedback I got, Captain Turnbull, is that the police department's doing a great job. That's not enough. And we're not going far enough in terms of reconsidering some strategies.
We've seen all the emails. So those are all being channeled through Lieutenant Lehman from residents. Our plan is to broaden the scope. It's not just the 900 block of Sheldon. I'm sure there's people on adjoining blocks. So it'll be a broader scope of invitation. But those residents for sure will know about it, and we're going to broaden it because the park is wider than the 900 block of Sheldon. So it's a whole 400 block East Imperial. Everything's south of.
Now, have we looked at putting a fencing up somewhere along the bluff so that people can't use that to walk down the bluff to go to work? So we kind of, water not that area?
Yes, that's a different issue, but we're looking at everything we can do to deal with the parking issue with LAX. We will find out all the issues, address them through parks, public works, through each department.
Yeah. What, Mike? Yes.
I'm just biting my. Are you trying to build a wall? Is that what you're trying to do?
No, I'm just saying it's just damaging the hill.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
No,
If we could put some kind of fencing down low below the hill so people don't have the ability to.
A few landmines too while we're at it? Okay.
There, in all seriousness, I know that Mr. Carpenter alluded to this, but Dick Croxall, a longtime resident as the chairman of the LAX Airport Advisory Council, he also has been exerting a lot of pressure with LAWA Community Relations so that they're aware. Mayor Fuentes and I and Greg Carpenter have been meeting with Deborah Flint, the CEO of LAX, to, basically convey the same concerns. So we're trying to approach it from multiple angles, and I think with this parking study, we'll get some good options. Okay, thank you for that. So August 21st is a meeting, you think?
Go ahead.
We will confirm that, yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, City Attorney Mark Hensley, I think you have a report regarding special agenda, possibly some other things.
Correct, Mayor Protem, and this relates to the special agenda for tonight and regarding Topgolf. And I don't know if it was clear to the public that when the meeting was open that both meetings were open, but I think it'd be appropriate to see if there were any people here that wanted to provide public communications on this particular item.
Okay, are there any public comments related to Item 1 under Special Order of Business, consideration and possible action to direct staff to undertake revisions related to the Center Cal lease agreement related to the proposed Topgolf project at the city's golf course and driving range at the lakes. The potential revisions include but are not limited to issues related to golf professionals, youth camps, and other city use of the driving range facility, security issues, Chevron's grant deed, and extension of the due diligence period. Any public comments? Mr. Ryan Baldino.
Hi, Ryan.
Can you state your address too, please? Thank you.
Ryan Baldino, 1444 East Palm. I would make comments if I knew what was on the agenda today. I got 24 hours notice. We're talking about Topgolf. I don't know what we're talking about. So it's hard for me to give your comment if you don't tell me what's going on with Topgolf. So I'm happy to give comment, but I know what was written on the agenda, and that's all I know.
Well, I got less than 24 hours, so.
So those are my 2 cents. A lot of people are interested in Topgolf. There's a lot of misinformation about Topgolf, and I understand that the meeting has been continued again to talk about Topgolf. So I'm here to find out what's going on because I know a lot of people in town want to know what's going on. So if we could clear that up, that'd be great. That's my comment.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, thanks, Mr. Baldino. Mark or Greg, do you want to address that comment in particular?
Well, that's the reason this is on the agenda is the council knows that the intent was to try to put this in front of the council on the 15th of August. It appears at this point in time that's not going to happen for a few reasons. We have a council member absent, and there are some issues that still need to be resolved, as I understand from the golf course subcommittee, and some other issues that are identified in the agenda. And the purpose of putting this on the agenda tonight was to have a discussion with the council to get direction, because as the public hearing comes up on the entitlement, which is the ordinance to change the zoning and to give the legal right to operate certain uses on the property, I believe it's important that these issues that are still outstanding get resolved. And there hasn't been a discussion amongst the council as a body on these issues in in some time. And these issues have just now sort of maturing as far as the golf course subcommittee. And perhaps we just take them kind of in pieces, if you will. As I understand it, the golf course subcommittee has been dealing with the issues related to the golf professionals, youth camps, and the other city use of the driving range facility. My understanding currently of where these issues stand is that the operation, or the originally the lease called for with regard to the golf pros, that those would be under the supervision of Topgolf, and that the subcommittee is now negotiated tentatively to have those golf pros under the city's auspices rather than under Topgolf's. And so that is a change that will be need to make to the lease between the parties, and that, as I understand it, that they will provide this space to the golf pros at no charge during certain hours and days of the week, but those hours and days have not been determined. And so long as they are...
Can I correct you? That's no charge to the city, not no charge to the golf pros.
Okay, and this is where I think...
So, because it's no charge to the city, but the golf pros will have a contract with the city.
Okay, and it's a good reason to have this discussion. So if there's no charge to the city, then I'm assuming the city doesn't have to charge the golf pros.
No, we charge the golf pros today.
Okay.
The golf course, the golf pros today are under contract to the golf course management company. And I guess there's if I look at this, there's, half a dozen issues that are just kind of flinging around out there. We're trying to get them into resolution here is what's going on. And we've been working on this for several years. And every time we try to get it into close the book on it, it just keeps, it's like Jell-O. It just keeps oozing out of the mold and keeps going a little bit further and further here. So the golf course subcommittee met today and is working with CenterCal, and CenterCal is working with Topgolf to try and come up with access agreements to the driving range, which is really the gist of what we need to accomplish with Topgolf and CenterCal, because when you look at the youth programs and the camps and the instruction, a lot of that's on the greens and the golf courses and the other areas that are going to be owned by the city, not by Topgolf. So that's why the city is going to, 20% of maybe 20% of the lessons in the programs is actually through the driving range. The rest of it's going to be on the Parks and Rec city side of it. So we're trying to get those things squared away. There's other issues out there that are listed here, right? The security issues, the grant deeds and the due diligence and all the other things that we're trying to make sure that all the due diligence is completed before we take a vote on it as a council. That's what that's what the golf course subcommittee is trying to do, is to make sure that all the things that were promised in the original agreement are being delivered. And some are and some aren't, and we're working on that. So we're trying to get those things resolved. So This is one of those things that it just drags on and on. Every time you get together, it takes
Well,
more and more
I
time.
think, being on the subcommittee, I do believe that communication can be better, and we can do a better job of keeping our residents up to speed on what is going on. I know there's sometimes even on the subcommittee and being council that I don't have all the information. So I'm going to ask you, the city manager, if you could give us an update on until this gets resolved on either a weekly or biweekly time frame, so that we can make sure that we're all on the same page. Because I know as we slip in time in either approving or disapproving this, then that also slips the time of reopening the golf course if we go into construction. So our hope was to come back live with a new golf course in the summer of 2018, and that's now in jeopardy, which is our huge time for our golf. You know, most of our programs happen during the summer, so it does not benefit anybody by this slippage, and we need to tighten up our belts on both sides of the team to make sure that we get this executed faster.
Well, let's back up, and I think our city attorney was suggesting that we try and tackle a couple of these one at a time. And that will, if we give them some direction, I think what I'm hearing is that will avoid further slippage. So as it relates to the pros, the youth camps, the uses of the facility, Mike or Carol, can you sum up what the golf course subcommittee's recommendation is on this at this point?
So at this point, we have submitted a counter offer. We've submitted an offer, a proposal to Topgolf. They came back with a counter. We've now submitted a second, and we've modified that second, and we're going to be submitting it today, I believe, through CenterCal. So we're hoping by the end of the week we'll have a counter proposal back that we can agree upon. That's as far as the usage of the facility from a bay standpoint for the pros. Now, I want to make it clear that there's the current proposal allows for 456 hours of time on a weekly basis for the city of El Segundo for free. Now that time will be used by the pros at a cost. They'll be paying the city or through the management company to use that fee, those spaces. So those spaces are not free to the golf pros. They are free to the city, and then the city will negotiate a deal with the golf pros, because the golf pros will be contracted with the management company on behalf of the city. Is that correct, Meredith? So that's from that perspective.
Okay, Mike, is that the way you see it as well?
So you're asking about the pros. There's about 2 or 3 issues with the pros. One was there was some kind of an agreement early on that because the course is shutting down and the driving range is shutting down, that some of these pros would have some compensation over the downtime, and that hasn't been. I haven't heard anything about that yet. So we've asked questions about that. The rest of it,
if I might, one of the comments I got from staff was that since Topgolf was the initial perspective that since they would no longer be Topgolf employees, that their commitment to pay that was for 2 golf pros during the construction period, that they didn't think it was going to be their obligation to make those payments. And I would add that if they don't make those payments, the city can't, I don't see how the city legally could pay somebody to do nothing. And I mean, Topgolf can, they're a private company, but we're a public agency, and I see it as a gift of public funds to pay somebody to do nothing.
Right.
so that's going to be a major issue going forward here, because the programs and things that we're trying to maintain are run by the pros. When they disappear, the programs disappear. When the place shuts down, if there's nobody keeping us tied together here, we've got some issues there. So there's issues about that. We need to get that resolved. There's issues about how many pros are going to be around. We haven't got that resolved yet. I don't know how we're going to resolve that. If that's an internal thing, but it impacts access to the driving range in some aspects. So your question about the pros is, there's a couple loose ends there that need to get resolved. We're working on it, and we haven't addressed the pay one. And if you're saying that we're we're getting rid of it. That's the first I've heard of that. So,
Right.
again, this
Well, I
is.
think what he's saying is originally the ask, and I mean, I think Al and I were involved in this process early on with EDAC, was the ask was, if you're going to continue these programs, then you ought to be paying these people while it's out. Now what I'm hearing is they're not going to be maintaining these pros are no longer going to be working for Topgolf. They're going to be working for the city if the city chooses to hire them, which I'm sure they will, and that is a separate transaction altogether. So I think it is different now than the way I understood it initially.
Right, well, and we just found out about that today as well, that that was negotiated. So the communication can be, there's some opportunity for improving the communication on all parties.
So you two are experts, subject matter experts on this. How do we get closure on this? What do you recommend?
Well-
It doesn't feel like we're going to get there tonight. How do we get there, and what's the time? what
Well,
time
I think
period?
to your point, if we have agreed that the pros are now part of the management company and not part of Topgolf, then those topics as far as payment for during the downtime, that comes off the table, and that's negotiated separately either through the management company. We've already discussed that we want to go to RFP with the management company because even though we do like Donovan, it's for the residents, we need to do due diligence to make sure that we go out to RFP to see if there's other management companies out there or if we're paying the right fees. There's a lot of opportunity there as well. So I feel if Topgolf comes back and agrees to our counter proposal as far as the number of bays, then we really should be, this issue becomes kind of closed.
So I don't
crazy.
agree with that. I think that we're going to destroy the programs if we don't do something to have a retention of some kind with a couple of the golf pros there. I don't know what that's going to look like. I don't know how that's going to work out. But somehow they've got to stay connected to the facility and connected to the programs. And
But that's the separate, if they're not part of Topgolf's,
so the reason they're out is because of the Topgolf deal. So that doesn't mean that Topgolf can't fund that activity.
these these are just contractors. I mean, we can't, to Mark's point, we can't,
So
can't pay for someone
and-
who's not providing a service.
I don't know what it looks like. All I know is that there needs to be some addressing the issue of how are we going to maintain a program startup in 2018 when we don't have any pros around. And it shouldn't be the city's burden because the city's funding that today through the golf course revenues and things, and that's how those people are being compensated today, is they're making money for the existing facility. When you close it down on them,
But we're closing it down to make a much nicer facility. We'll have a much nicer golf course. We'll have a
And-
golf course infused with money. We can't stop progress because of a couple people's livelihood for a couple months.
Meredith, do you have anything to add here as the Director of Parks and Rec? Or-
No, nothing much more to add. I would say that there just hasn't been a lot of conversation with Topgolf about the compensation issue.
But why is that? Are we not driving that process, or are we letting them drive it? Like, I feel like we need to get this closed and we need to move it forward. Like, what are we doing to drive the communication so that we're getting things resolved and moving forward?
Well, I think that probably maybe a month and a half ago was when we really started down the path of Topgolf sort of relinquishing the opportunity for them to provide the programs. And since then, we've been focusing on what does it really look like for the city to maintain those programs and working on the space allocation. And when I did reach out to Topgolf about that separate issue of compensation, what Mark had reported was the response that I got back was that their interpretation was now that that's changed, that they felt that the obligation probably no longer applied. That's as far as that conversation has gone so far. So if there's something else that that the city council wishes us to ask for or to work with Topgolf on that, we can do that in the meantime.
So we basically haven't gone back with a counter proposal as far as they've come back saying, if you guys, if the city wants to maintain the pros as part of the rec park through the management company, then it negates that request. But we haven't gone back of a counter proposal at all.
Dr. Brand, what are your thoughts on this?
A lot of this I'm hearing for the first time because I'm not on the committee. I did meet with representatives of Top Golf within an hour after they made that announcement at the golf course subcommittee that they would not be getting involved with the lessons. And I thought when I first heard that, that's going to resolve a lot of issues around the golf professionals. And now I see, while that might have happened, it's also created some other issues of how we get from here to there. We need to have people sit down and hammer this out and talk about it, because pretty soon this transaction is going to be closer to 6 years old than 5. And it's really needs an up or a down here. I want to get this voted on, and it just seems to be elusive.
Right, it's not fair to all parties, because at this moment, the golf course is not being upkeep. I mean, it's maintained, but there's no money being infused into it. You know, we're losing money because people are starting to, not book events, and we've already, as far as the event booking, we had told them not to book any events past September. And now with the state slippage, now we're not going to have events. It's like there's a lot of consequences with not driving this process.
It just seemed like if you get the right people in the room, these issues that seem to be unclear now could be hammered out in 4 or 5 hours, and we could get to the point where we could put this on our agenda and vote on it. There are things that can be worked through, and
absolutely,
I'm not sure why that hadn't been done a long, long time ago. This thing's been sitting around since way before I got back up here.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of making me crazy.
Yeah.
So, Mark, you're essentially the point on executing this contract, right? The whole process. What do you recommend in terms of nailing down this provision of the contract?
Well, I would recommend that there be a lot of focus by the golf course subcommittee with Center Cal and Top Golf to get the details of these issues hammered out. And I mean, we can talk about the other ones in a minute, but particularly with regard to the golf pros, the youth group issues, and I think the access as far as the people being able to use it as a driving range in the morning hours and whatnot.
That's being resolved because that's now gone through a counter proposal as number of bays. So that's being discussed. The issue right now is the time the golf course is closed, who is going to pay the pros? I believe that's the main.
Could we just not get a task force of Meredith, one of the pros, Mike Carroll, and Top Golf to sit down in the next 10 days and get this done? Is that a reasonable request?
I think it's our agreements with Center Cal. That's probably the biggest issue in this right now. Is Center Cal is who we have an agreement with, and the details we're trying to coordinate are through their subletter. And this is just it's been
okay. To that point, Mike,
trying.
Center Cal, replace Top Golf with Center.
well, we need both of them in the room to get this resolved. Is the bottom
So
line.
Center Cal, Top Golf, Mike Carroll, one of the pros, and Meredith to get this.
Well, I think we need to have.
Well, the subcommittee is trying to do that, right? We're marching through that, Meredith, and that's pretty much their.
Then why are we discussing this right now? We're waiting for you guys to come back with recommendations.
I think what I'm asking of the staff and of the city manager, if we could get information to be more fluid and more available as far as the status of things, because both Mark and I we find out things very late in the game, and so like today is the first. I found out today or yesterday that we weren't going to be voting on it on the 15th. So if we could just get information, and I know those decisions are made more, that's just one example, but
Okay,
I think
Greg, do you have something to add? Or?
That's an operational issue that we can certainly improve upon. So we'll make it a point to communicate to council on a weekly basis what the current status of the negotiations are, and as appropriate, we'll get that information out to the public. I think what staff and Mark need direction on, well, first of all, we wanted to inform the entire council of what the status is and what the issues are. And there are a couple of these that we wanted direction on to go negotiate with CenterCal and Topgolf. The golf course subcommittee is doing a good job on trying to nail down the details around the accessibility and the pricing. This issue of does the condition that's in the current agreement that calls for CenterCal through Topgolf to pay for 2 golf pros, make a good faith effort to pay for 2 of the golf pros during the construction phase, is that something that the majority of the council still feels is important to be in the agreement? I think would bring that issue to some resolution. Or is it part of a broader negotiation that the golf course subcommittee wants to do and then incorporate it into the agreement?
Well, it's I mean, we say 2 golf pros, but there's, according to the subcommittee today, there's about 10 or, 8, and then it fluctuates up to 10. So I'm not sure keeping 2 versus.
I think we had specific language in the current agreement.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's always been known, and it was
2?
it was just 2.
So who's going to pick the 2?
That's,
I think
How about
it's,
the other pros?
I don't have enough, frankly,
kinda
I
feel like
personally
it's
don't have
kind
enough
of-
information, Carol, because you 2 are saying that.
Yeah.
Excuse me,
you're-
I can clarify
Hold
if
on,
you
hold
don't
on one
mind.
sec, Dave, thank you, hold on one sec. Just 1 minute. You're saying that you're concerned about the continuity of the youth programs going forward, instructional programs. So there's a couple different moving parts here. I have a hard time believing that requiring CenterCal, aka Topgolf, to fund 2 pros during the construction is the only way to get there, the only means to the end. So I would like more information. I'm seeing this for the first time in the last 24 hours as well. And so
all of us have.
All of us,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, that's why information has been very spotty.
So on this particular one, Greg, it doesn't sound like, we're not going to get there tonight. Doesn't sound like. And I think we need more information. Does everyone pretty much concur on that? And I
We
would
do
like to
need to-
set a date, though, that
Yeah.
we come back as a council with new information, with recommendations from this committee to put a little fire to this so that we get it done quickly.
Absolutely. Because like I said, the longer we wait, we're impacting summer of 18. And that's where, where the money generation
So
comes from.
from the 2 of you, Mike and Carol, what's a reasonable date that you feel like you can come back with some recommendations to the council? It could be a special meeting or next meeting, I'm not quite sure, but.
Meredith, when can we get the committee back together? I guess and get Topgolf and CenterCal in the room and hash this out. We can lock the door and
Yeah.
we can get it sorted out.
From my perspective, we can do it soon. We can do it in a few days, early next week. The committee is really pretty flexible on getting together. From my perspective too, there is that difficulty dealing with the CenterCal, then calling Topgolf, and then getting the right person from Topgolf is another layer. We have contact with one person at Topgolf, and then he has to check with the operations folks at Topgolf. So I think that's probably the key.
Yeah.
The key to that is getting the right people from Topgolf in that conversation also. So
Okay, so it's reasonable that within 2 weeks, we could have not only this issue, but all these other hanging issues that are precluding us from getting a deal done in the due diligence process.
I think
resolved?
we
I'd
were
like to
always
ad- I'd
working
like to
towards the
address-
August 15th.
Well, I don't know that we'll have status on them for sure.
I'd like to address some of the other ones in a little
Yeah.
detail. With regard to the security issues, my understanding is that Councilmember Brand has had discussions with CenterCal and that they've, subject to coming to language agreement, they've agreed to provide security out there by way of police officers on Friday and Saturday evenings, and that it's sort of a flexible process in that it would start with 2 officers for each night. It could go to 4 if it was deemed necessary. It might be reduced if it was deemed unnecessary. There might be additional days that would be added in, and so there's a tentative agreement there. I think there's language that just has to be worked out. part of putting this in there with the rest of this was to see where we are on all this language as far as submitting something over to Center Cal. And at least my suggestion on the security issues was probably to make that language such that the police chief would be the one making the decisions about staffing over at the facility based upon.
Who would?
The police chief.
Correct.
Based upon the experiences being had out there.
But this is an example of the communication flow. I didn't know about the security conversation until someone happened to mention it. There's got to be a point person at the city that's managing this project, and that person needs to be making sure that all parties that need the information are getting the information, and that if Topgolf is now willing to fund or pay for security, then why are we, being so, requesting such some other stuff that maybe we could be more flexible on. So it's like we have to look at the whole overall project, and I feel that because it's very there's no one person that's managing this project, that we're not getting we're not doing this the best way for the city.
Okay, well, I think one of the issues is that you have different council members with different interests or concerns, and
but regardless of that, then where is that information then being consolidated and disseminated effectively? So it doesn't. So if
Councilmember Perstek, Meredith Pettit is our project manager on this, and if we need to increase communication, we've certainly heard that loud and clear.
Okay.
But part of the issue is because it is a council and the information flow, some of it needs to happen at public meetings as far as getting direction. And it was one of the reasons I put this on there here this evening. I was seeing the issue that you're pointing out is we have a subcommittee working on certain issues. We have council members interested in other issues. And as a body, you're not all getting the information.
We're not seeing the whole picture.
Right. So, and we're coming up on trying to get this thing finalized one way or the other. And so these are the issues that I see are sort of currently outstanding. The other is the Chevron grant, and I'm sorry, Councilmember Brand, did you want to add something to that discussion on the security?
Well, nobody should be surprised by the security issue because I reported back in the spring that I took a trip to Roseville, California, to visit the only Topgolf installation in California. I met with the Roseville police officers there that were assigned on Friday and Saturday nights to come to the Topgolf facility and talked with them about their issues. That got me interested in what had been said back here, because remember, I was deported to Inglewood for 2.5 years, so I was not in touch with the specifics of the controversy around this. At a meeting about month and a half ago, sitting right there, I voted against the extension of time for Topgolf along with Mayor Fuentes, and sent out a clear message to them that they needed to deal with the security issue because nobody was talking to me about that. Well, that next week they sent 2 people from Dallas. And so that was a productive meeting, and I just think results need to be written into the deal. So I've been talking with Mark some on what those comments should be, the content should be.
So and that's Mark's comment. His whole purpose is you're working with them, I'm working with them, the committee's working with them, and none of this is coming together to all of us. So nobody can see the complete picture. Everything you have right now is a view of there's 1 or 2 issues we're trying to get resolved. When we get these resolved, we're done. And there's 4 or 5 issues that are floating around out there, and you just don't know about the other 3 or 4. That's the biggest issue we have right now. That's where, unfortunately, the Brown Act probably hurts us, our ability to communicate with each other here.
Mark, what are you looking for? I mean, Don clearly has some concerns about safety. It sounds like others of us do as well. We haven't heard any numbers in terms of what Topgolf or Center Cal is going to be paying for such security. Like, what are you looking for? Direction from us in terms?
There were several purposes, but 1, education. 2, let's say, for instance, Councilmember Brand's concern, the rest of you don't share. there's no way for me to find that out other than to put this on the agenda and say, are you in concurrence with moving forward with that? Or if subcommittee is moving in a direction on some of these issues that you don't agree with or share their thoughts on that, that's the kind of thing I need to hear, because I'm the scrivener of the deal, so I'm waiting to get, you know, direction as to what do I write in this. The lease is going to need to be amended. Again, these aren't, I don't see, I mean, we're talking about a couple of sections of the lease, but they're important sections, and so I'm just looking to see if is the council in agreement on these issues. And some of the issues aren't quite resolved.
But if Dr. Brand met with them and they said they were willing to give us some security or cover security, why wasn't that then brought to the subcommittee to let us know that that they're willing to do that, and that we could just all discuss it at the subcommittee level and then put it as part of the agreement?
Well, that would be the subcommittee again, not the entire council.
I understand, but then we could then, at least Mike and I would be part of that discussion, and then we could bring it to say, you know, so when we're negotiating these other pieces, we understand that they're willing to give some additional funding for security. Then we have a better understanding of the whole picture. But right now, we're kind of...
Yeah, and I think for me, security, and I've been to the one in San Antonio several times, and a client out there had a great experience. I didn't see any police, unless they were off duty, out there at that facility. Again, it was a Thursday night or a Tuesday when I was there, but didn't dawn on me that there might be a potential problem there. So for me, the question is Roseville unique? What's going on in San Antonio? What about their facility in Illinois, Utah? What are the stats? Is there an uptick in crime? Like, is it something we need to be concerned about or not? So I feel like I'm kind of making that decision a little bit of a vacuum.
Mm-hmm.
So my gut is we ought to look into it and err on the side of
Higher
protecting
security.
our citizens and security.
Because we can always, if we find that it's nothing, we can always change
Yeah,
it.
well, when I came back, I met with Chief of Police Tavera about it. Subsequent to that, I had a conversation with Captain Turnbull about the language and how our police department needed to have the final say and how many officers were needing to be assigned. Top Golf didn't seem surprised by the request, said that money for security would not come out of the local operator's budget. It's something they do from corporate. And so it's all going well. It just needs to get written up.
Okay, so we spent a lot of time on this. Could we ask you to go back to your committee, get more specifics on this, the chief's recommendations, the language specifically, that along with the Golf Pro instruction items, come back to the council next meeting, say here's what we recommend we do?
Right.
And
Is
not to beat this up anymore, but just a couple of other issues, I'm sorry, but the Chevron grant deed issue's been around for well over 4 years. And one of the issues I saw pop up several weeks ago, there was some language floated out for the entitlement documents that I thought would be harmful to the project. And so I think it's important that we see before this entitlements are finalized, that the Chevron agreement be finalized so that we have that document and know what it says. And this is really not it's a city issue in that we are concerned about it, but it's really a Center Cal Chevron issue that needs to get resolved. And so my recommendation on that is that we make it clear that until that document is done, there wouldn't be a second reading of the ordinance. That we really need to see that document finalized.
And have we notified Center Cal of that requirement?
I have not.
So how do they know? Like, this goes back to my issue of, is there a project manager? Is there someone driving this
Carol,
process?
we have told Chevron and
You know-
Center Cal that we need something in writing from them that they're willing to execute this agreement before the...
Okay, but
Carol, let's focus on, you
Yeah.
got some good points about process improvement. Let's
Yeah.
just, I move that we instruct the city attorney to not allow a second reading of the resolution until we get that granting in writing. Resolution regarding entitlements. Can you clarify the language for me?
Sure. The issue is that Chevron has a grant deed. When it deeded the property to the city, there were some restrictions in the grant deed about what the property could be used for. And Center Cal and Topgolf are concerned that unless Chevron makes it clear explicitly in writing that the Topgolf operation falls within the acceptable uses on the property, that they won't be able to move forward. And so they've been working on what is a relatively simple concept for 4+ years, and we just need to get it resolved.
I mean, that's a potential deal killer. I mean, I'm sure there's good intentions, spirit of the deal, but I'd like to see that in writing as well. Why are we spinning our wheels on this? So I move again that we hold off on a second reading of the entitlement resolution until we get that grant deed in writing that specifies that Topgolf can be allowed on that property.
Well, there's no resolution, so I don't know what you're talking about here. So
Well, it's just direction.
Direction is all we're giving them.
Fine,
Is
direction.
the majority of the council in
All in favor? You want to comment on it,
Well,
Mike?
Well, that's what we're doing here, is we're saying we want all these things completed before it comes back to us.
Right.
That's what we're
Well,
trying to
I
get.
think Mark is trying to knock out some of these. To me, this is a critical path item. If we don't get, we could concede, negotiate on these other points. If we don't get that grant deed entitlement, I'm getting the impression that we're not willing to move forward as a city, and I support that. So I'm just saying we carve that out right now and give the staff direction to say that if we don't get that in writing, that grant deed, we do not move forward with the second reading of the resolution. And these other ones, I think we're saying we go back and ask your committee to come back with recommendations in a specific period of time, and then we review those and try and move this thing forward.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm good with that. I got a list of about 5 or 6 things that we got to go through here. So, and I'm not sure I have the full list. That's my whole point. So
Let's
you're
just see if we can knock
you're
out
picking
one.
You're picking the
Yes.
grant restrictions.
Let's knock out one.
I mean, we have the one, we have the language for the security.
Well, there's
This one is a deal killer, though, Mike. It's like if they can't work out the grant deed, it's
Well,
not going to
according,
move forward.
we're under the impression that a deal has been agreed upon, and that it now just needs to be formalized and put in writing. Is that what,
Yeah, so
Meredith,
let's-
is that not what we've been told?
We got a second. Let's go to a vote on that one. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you, Mike. 4-0. Excuse me.
So
Now on
can
the
we,
other, on the
can we
other,
just make sure that Center Cal is notified of that requirement and that we work as a team to make that happen?
okay, Mike. Yeah, they're going to do that. It sounds like Carol. Mike and Carol, on the other items, being golf course subcommittee members, what do you recommend? How do we move those forward?
I think earlier we could get together with the subcommittee with Center Cal and Topgolf, have a meeting and hash out some of these details and make sure that, I mean, Meredith, is there anything you want to add to that? I mean, I have to say Meredith's doing a great job of, she is trying to do this deal along with everything else, and she is keeping it abreast. I mean, keeping it afloat.
Yeah, I think my comment would be that the focus of the subcommittee is really been on the golf course design, the clubhouse design, the flow of the site plan, and the program. So
Right.
to bring security into it would be a new issue for that subcommittee, and I'm not sure that was the intent of that subcommittee. There's several department heads that meet on a regular basis and sort of hash out all of these items that are pertaining to planning, such as the environmental impact report. The city manager meets with us. We have Public Works involved with the working on the lighting project that's going to have to coincide with this. So there are several departments that are working, and there's a lot of internal communication going on and working separately. We meet and we go out and work on these specific items and meet and hash things out too. So as far as the program related items, I think that would be fairly simple for the subcommittee to continue doing what we're doing. Regarding security, I think that we'd have to really identify who is in the negotiation seat on that.
I think on that point, my office will draft up language consistent with what I've suggested or what I understand that they've tentatively agreed to, and that is that they will provide security, and it'll be at a minimum level to begin with. It may be increased, it may be decreased based upon the experiences out at the Topgolf facility, and I think that the police chief is probably the right person to be making those decisions. And so we'll submit that language we'll work through their lawyers and submit that language. My point in putting it in here was that, to your point, is I don't know what you all know.
Right, and I think maybe this, in hindsight 2020, and we can learn from this, we really need to, the next time we do embark on a project like this, is that we really clearly define the roles and responsibilities of the subcommittee or the committee that's formed, because what you're saying is the subcommittee was really just a small component of it, and yet I think people are assuming that that the subcommittee is supposed to be overseeing all of it, where the subcommittee is really overseeing just the design, the programming of the contract, and not the whole or overarching contract or deal itself. And so that then goes back to, I guess, back to Greg, is that there is no committee that's doing, it's just the staff that's doing the overarching deal of the program.
Right, so there's the items in the due diligence period that each department or staff related to those departments and those functions are tackling individually.
Okay, so my vote would be then that you two, a pro, Center Cal and Topgolf, at a minimum, get together and hash out these remaining items along with Chief Whalen. It doesn't sound like the subcommittee's the right way to go.
Well, no, I'm not. What I'm saying is the subcommittee's charter was never to be about the whole deal. The subcommittee.
I think what I thought I heard Ms. Pettit say was that the subcommittee, she didn't feel like the subcommittee, that they've dealt with some of these design issues and they might not be the right group of people to deal with this. Did I mishear that?
Are we talking specifically about the security issue?
Yeah,
Yes, security and
the granting.
the pros and the instructional facility. We got two hanging issues that we got to contend with to get this, to continue with due diligence, right? We've already knocked out the first one. So, with the grantee thing. So what group of people is going to get that solved and in what time period?
I would recommend that my office take care of trying to draft language, or we'll draft the language and work with their lawyers over the security issues. I think they've agreed to what appears to be a reasonable solution to the problem, so now it's just a matter of documenting it.
Okay, so you'll work with Chief Whalen and you'll come back with a recommendation. And then Mike?
The subcommittee will do the.
So just to put it in perspective here, right? The deal was made years ago. I can't remember how far back, but there was a list of items that were promised in the deal. Those got connected into a due diligence. It's a lot more than this. There's golf course reconfiguration, there's other issues that come into it with the clubhouses and all the other things. So there's a list of things that are in the due diligence paperwork that need to come out. So what we would, in the old-fashioned days, we'd take a flip chart and we would probably put on all the issues that need to get resolved out of the due diligence and where are we at on each of these issues and check them off. That's, the golf course subcommittee is working on a few of those issues, but not all of them. And then there's new issues that come in on security, and the grant restriction's always been an issue, but that hasn't been one that the subcommittee's been working on. So there's a lot of issues out there that have to get resolved before this is done, and a lot of them are really well along. I mean, there's, we are within inches of getting some of these things finalized, if we can get in the room and get some serious people talking about it. But right now, it's been difficult to get Topgolf to the table. And because our deals with Center Cal, they've been kind of a front for the Topgolf people, in my opinion, and it makes it a cumbersome deal. So taking these 2 or 3 issues does not address all the issues of due diligence.
Well, hold on a second. Now this is new information. You're telling me there's a lot of issues left to contend with? I just got the impression that
there's a list of issues that are getting resolved now, right, as we're going through. These are the remaining issues. There's other issues that are, whether or not they're resolved completely, they're not as promised. I mean, there's issues out there that are.
Okay, so then what I would ask, if that's the case, I would ask, can you guys come back next council meeting and tell us all of the issues that are not resolved that will prevent us from moving forward through the due diligence process and ultimately getting this thing done?
Sure, we'll give you a status update on the, what are there, like 12 or 15 due diligence conditions, Mark? I think.
But most of those are
Talk about them.
many of them have been met or are
Right.
are sort of non-issues to
So
me.
we'll prepare a matrix that shows
Sure.
what those conditions are and what the status is. There were things like apply for your zoning entitlements, which they've done. They've done their EIR. It's coming to council with the other approvals. There are some things that are staged with the construction, I believe. So
I mean, there are a lot of them that have been satisfied. we approached Edison about the power lines or about the right-of-way and lease, and so a number of them have been resolved, and these were the ones that, from what I could tell, were unresolved, but we will double-check that. I don't think there are other large issues out there. At the end of the day, when all the due diligence is done, CenterCal still has to sign, and there are guarantees that have to be issued, but that occurs after the approval. But I don't believe that there are other, I don't think there are other large due diligence items left.
Well, so is it, we could get that done before next meeting?
Sure.
Because I would like to see that. I think we all would like to see where we're at with all those. Okay. Councilman Brand, anything else on that? All right.
Did you get enough out of that, Mark?
Sure.
Absolutely nothing. He got absolutely no.
No,
All
and,
right.
and shout out to Meredith and her team for keeping the subcommittee moving.
And on the subcommittee, all volunteers. So, former Councilman Atkinson, I know you had something to say. We got public comments coming up. Just 5 minutes if you could hang tight. Thank you, sir. Roughly. Okay, let's see. We got through the city attorney reports. City clerk Tracy Weaver. Anything to add?
What is?
No, thank you.
Okay. The city treasurer is not here. I don't think Dino's here either, right? Okay. And let's see. Council member Dr. Brand.
Thank you, sir. The art walk was fantastic. As I traipsed from one end of town to the other, a lot of people out there. That could actually be done disjointed from the farmer's market, and the town would still be very, very crowded. It was well done. Hats off to George Renfro for his use of social media and for getting people involved. And then very nice ribbon cutting at the Cambria Hotel last Thursday, I think it was. Big turnout. I was there with Barbara Voss, and that was good. So every week, new good things for City of El Segundo. Thank you.
Thank you. Council member Perstuck.
Yeah, and I was going to also shout out to George Renfro for doing a great job of being the leader of that art walk. He's really upped the game on that. I just remind everybody to go to the movie in the park. That is a great community event for El Segundo, thanks to the Rotary. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Dugan.
Two things. First one, in the first public comment period, I just had a note here and we never addressed it. And the first person was talking about being harassed by our police. And I have a recollection of that person during the whole RV negotiation process and everything. And I'm wondering if there's any comments that we could answer, or if it's appropriate that we'd say, hey, we're just enforcing our new ordinance, or is it just better left alone, Captain? I'll leave it up to you on that one, but I'd like to offer you a chance to respond to that. She accused the police department of harassing her, and I don't think, where does that go? That just falls on deaf ears? And
The department, and the captain can speak to this, has a process for taking such complaints and then reviewing them and responding to them. So they do deal with them. Now, I don't know whether if the captain wants to add anything to that or not.
Well,
this is one of our violators.
Okay.
And she has, we've educated her on the ordinance. She continues to do things that draws attention to her, and our parking enforcement, our officers are out there trying to enforce the ordinance. I spoke to her today, and I spoke to her after her public comments. So if she has a complaint, we're going to go through the process. And
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Captain. And the second was I attended the art walk, and there was more entertainment and more social activity at the last one I went to last year. So I was disappointed a little bit by that aspect of it, because art doesn't capture me in all phases here, right? But social activity and a little more camaraderie and stuff. So I think George did a great job, Renfro, and I think we lost a little bit from some of the last year ones. I think there was a little more social activity last year, and if there's a way to bring that back, it might bring me back. Otherwise, that could be my last art archery cultural reach out thing or whatever. But that's right. Yeah, playoffs coming in. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was hampered a little bit by requirement regarding alcohol. Okay, but thanks, Mike. Mike, thank you for addressing the public comment issue as well. Appreciate that. Mayor Fuentes is out of the country. She's in China on a business diplomacy effort. We're thankful for her representing there and honored to be here in her stead. Clutter Bluff, we already talked about that, and I'm thankful the community meeting is moving forward. I was under the impression it was September. August 21st is much better. There was a recent issue regarding dogs that some of you may have seen on social media, and I know Mayor Fuentes, Greg Carpenter, and I think Chief Whalen were there and some other police members. I don't really have much to add because I wasn't there, other than it seemed like there was significant community outreach that happened. There was a meeting in the neighborhood, and I think that the police department is considering some new strategies to address challenging animals, essentially. Greg, do you want to touch on it at all, or?
I was actually out of town, but Chief Whalen and the mayor did meet with a number of people around the issue, and one of the topics that was discussed was getting an understanding of what the city's ordinance is, which is fairly, I think, typical of how cities enforce animal control issues, but it was also brought to light that there are cities that choose to have a shorter timeline or stricter standards around these types of instances, and there was discussion of the city amending its municipal code to be a little bit more strict with respect to these types of incidents. And I'm sure the mayor, when she returns from China, is going to have conversations and potentially bring forward some suggestions for council to consider.
Okay, more to come. Thank you. DWP, Greg, any update on when we're meeting with Ian?
We're waiting for a key member of their staff to get back from vacation. They have indicated a willingness to paint or put a mesh around the aged tanks on the top of Grand Hill. So there is some cooperation that it sounds like is coming our way. We just need to pin down what that consists of.
I think we heard they were also open to some other, manifestation of the tank, either art. So is the Arts and Culture Committee aware okay, great. Okay, Vista Del Mar, we had a great meeting with Supervisor Hahn. She's been very receptive. 2 meetings, and Manhattan Beach led the charge. Hermosa Beach was involved as well. And essentially Supervisor Hahn and her Director of Public Works, Director of Beach and Harbors helped secure some creative solutions involving parking and public access, getting California Coastal Commission, Surfrider Foundation, and other stakeholders involved. And I think it was through her leadership that we really got something done more quickly, and she put the pressure politically on Bonen's office. So I think it would be appropriate to invite her to come, or her staff, to receive a public recognition, because, I didn't really know her before that first meeting, and she was very gracious, embraced us right away, heard what we had to say, and got things done. And she doesn't have any real jurisdiction there, but she was able to assert some political pressure and come up with these creative solutions I mentioned. So that was great, and we're thankful. And let's see, there's one item left, which is number 12, consideration and possible action to direct staff to add an environmental impact statement to all policy decisions brought before the City Council. And having brought this forward myself, I'd say that environmental impact statement's a little bit of that strong language that kind of speaks to CEQA. I think it's more about asking the question for any policies that come before council as to whether or not this was the most environmentally appropriate recommendation, and if not, why. So if we're buying vehicles, have we explored electric? Is it feasible? If not, why? So I think, Greg, do you have anything to add on this one, or is it just what I've stated?
I think that you introduced the item. You asked staff to prepare the staff report so that council can formally consider whether this is something that staff should be directed to do. Staff certainly can, to the best of our ability, not being necessarily environmental experts, but to the best of our ability, ask the question when we're making major purchases or making major policy decisions about other options that have potentially less environmental effect. I think we can generally discuss what options we looked at and why we ruled them out. I think the real sort of question that staff has here is to what level are we doing that? Is what consists of a major policy decision or a major purchase, and we can do our best to carry that out. And as we try it and report on it, council can give us direction whether we're meeting your expectations.
And I'd like to add with thought is, if the matter that is being brought forward to the council is a project as defined by CEQA, that means it's going through an environmental review in any event. And so it would seem that potentially those items that are subject to CEQA probably shouldn't be reviewed under a different standard. And so these would be non-CEQA related items. That makes sense?
Right. So I see it as well. I think mostly it'll be appropriate for purchases, not headcount changes or things like that, probably, unless it was an environmental position. So what do we have as a possible course of action tonight?
Well, you would be directing staff to develop some criteria and to begin including in appropriate staff reports an assessment of the options that were looked at and what the environmental impacts or effects of the various options were and why we have selected the one we have recommended in that particular staff report.
Okay, we have some experts in the environmental committee.
So you could direct staff to work with the environmental committee to develop a policy that we can use going forward.
So also, since we do have the experts in the environmental committee, would it be wise for us to bring them in and look at some of our practices and policies, how we conduct business within the city, as far as, are we recycling where we should be recycling? Should we be buying different types of products? You know, what is our footprint as a city? And, you know, so that we actually talk the walk rather than just, you know.
What's their expertise in that?
We have the.
Yeah, I think
We have a
they're.
committee, but what's their expertise in those
I don't know,
areas?
that's why you.
Well, I know they've got, like, for example, one member of the committee for sure, her job is that, specifically for one of the major airlines. So I think there is expertise there. One thing, let's address the one thing right now, which is, should we direct staff to go back to the environmental committee and ask for some guidance in terms of how to have this criterion added to policy decisions? Dr. Brand, any comments?
Yeah, I don't think we should. I think they'll mention it if it's relevant on particular items, but I'd just as soon not make it any harder on staff to prepare these items in our agenda. I'd pass on it.
Okay. For one, I can give you one example. When one of the departments came forward with vehicle purchases, it wasn't mentioned. And I would like to see it mentioned, and I think that we are frankly, a poor example of environmental stewardship. And if you look at some of our surrounding cities, they are doing way more to address things than we are, even banning things in their city. So it doesn't have to be at the cost of business or increased regulatory burden either. And I think this is just a small step in the right direction. That's my personal opinion. So I'll make a motion that we direct staff to talk to the environmental committee about adding a criterion for environmental consideration on purchases and other potentially applicable policy decisions.
Again, I don't know what their expertise it is in reviewing that, right? You're gonna sit there and put a bunch of people in a room that are gonna...
No, that's not what I'm suggesting at all. They're coming back and say, add this language. Is this the most environmentally responsible purchase decision or decision? Yes or no? Whatever the language is. I'm not saying they review anything going forward. We're not slowing down the process. It's putting a statement. And we already have language on here that says, is there a fiscal impact amount? It's just one other consideration. Is this the most environmentally responsible decision? No, because we don't have the infrastructure for electric vehicles in our town, whatever it might be. But it doesn't take that much thought to consider what the environmental impact is of a purchase decision. And frankly, most companies already do it. We are way behind.
And then we were talking about getting an electric charging station. I don't know what the status is on that.
They're building one out there right now, yeah.
Oh, is that what's going on in the parking lot?
You just throw stuff away, you don't build stuff, right?
All right, so I made a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
If you're going to add language into a purchasing agreement to look at it and adjust and assess whether or not this is the most environmentally, and then what's the right word in there?
Call it friendly for now.
Environmental friendly. I'm okay with that language going in there, but I don't want anything to get in the way of the work process here.
I think what you're just trying to do is make people stop and take a moment and reflect.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I think
That's what we're trying to do at this juncture, right?
Consciousness is one thing, but action, when it starts getting into delaying, and that's my concern, is it's gonna be, now I've gotta go through some Harvard Business School assessment on whether or not it's the right tool, the right hand tool to buy before I go to Home Depot and buy a hammer. I'm just being a jerk, but I apologize for that, but it's just,
Is that a yes vote, Mike?
it's kind of a yes.
Yes, okay. Dr. Brand?
I vote no.
Okay, 3-1. Thank you. All right, we'll go back, thank you, Mike. We'll go back to public communication.
Hi, Ryan Baldino. It's Palm. Real quick on Topgolf. When Chevron came to the Planning Commission, I also serve on the Planning Commission, the spokesman from Chevron in a roundabout way basically said Chevron was fine with Topgolf. Their concern was, it's a 20-year lease. If Topgolf goes away, they don't want some motocross or something else. They wanted language that said if Topgolf went away, it came back to the city, and we decided what the next appropriate use of that would be. But I believe his comment at the end of our meeting was, Chevron is on board. Chevron will sign once the city approves. So if you might want to look at that or reach out. I think it was Ron Perlman was his name who showed up, maybe Lily Craig. I don't know if what you voted on was the exact opposite of what Chevron said, but I hope that gets sorted out. And then with respect to this idea of Topgolf giving bay time to the city, did you say 460 hours a week? 460 hours a week that the city gets that these golf pros can then use to teach classes at $40 a half an hour is what I got off of the Good Swings Happen. Okay, so $80 an hour at 460, $36,000 these golf pros can make, and they're paying $600 a month to the city? So who are we protecting? Are we looking out for the best interest of the city of El Segundo, or are we looking out for a handful of golf pros who are lucky enough to have what I think is already a sweetheart deal at the facility we have now? So let's have some more sunshine on this negotiation process, because I'll say right now, I'm a little concerned that special interests are trying to torpedo what a lot of good people have been trying to make happen in this town for a lot of good reasons. So that's my comment on that. I would like to have notice, Ms. Weaver, of any golf committee meetings. I believe those will be a public meeting. I'd like to just attend to kind of supervise what exactly is going on here, because there's been a lot of work put into something which, in my opinion, is going to have a lot of benefit for not just people who play golf, but the entire city, and not just the Miracosta Golf Club or the high school golf programs of the neighboring cities, but the people in this town that we're supposed to serve. So Tracy, just an email on whatever that meeting is. And I like to think of myself as someone who goes out of the way to stay informed, and it's been very hard for me to figure out what's going on with Topgolf. So whatever we can do to move this thing and get it done and let everyone know what the deal is, so we can all come, give our input. You guys make the decision, and I know you all have the best interest in the city. It takes a lot of time to do what you do. I have a lot of respect for it. But whatever we can do just to pull the blanket off it, let us know what the deal terms are. We'll talk about the pros, we'll talk about the cons, and then we'll move forward. All right? Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Ryan. It sounds like we're going to have that too, right? I mean, what we've asked is that you come back with any hanging issues left in due diligence, including the ones that were part of the process that have been resolved, environmental review, et cetera, right? And that'll be a public meeting. We'll notice that effectively so that any parties concerned can come out and address that.
And we agreed quite a while ago not to meet in closed session on this topic. That's why we're talking about it in open session.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comments, Dave?
Dave Atkinson, 727 West Mariposa. I have several. I can probably clarify a few things. Topgolf, a meeting or two ago, brought in their security. They gave a presentation. It was really quite easy, and I don't understand what that hang-up could be. They're going to put whatever is necessary. They pay for it. The city does not. Also, we're talking about 2 pro golfers out of the, well, currently now there's only 7 or 8. There's normally they like to have 10. Out of those 2 golfers, it's Josh and Scott Roberts. They were given the opportunity to work with Topgolf, or what has transpired since then, because the deal never got done. They now are going to be able to do the same programs they're doing today and actually make them larger and larger. You got to understand something. We got 54 bays. We're going to have 102. And as for the 450 hours, all the money that they can make, and it's free, all the kids in here, the school and everything else. I mean, I can't understand any business that has been over backwards more than Topgolf has. And in the council meeting, like I said, they brought all that up. Is the council aware that the city gets $14,000 a month the day it's down? Okay, that also comes out of the agreement. There's a lot of the agreement that, I don't know, maybe you've overlooked it, but I obviously have read it several times. And these guys are independent contractors. And Lane Donovan has more than one golf course they manage. So if they're inconvenienced for 6 or 8 months, why don't they go there and ask Lane Donovan, can I give you the same 600 and run my lessons? I wonder if Lane Donovan would let them do that for that amount. I mean, you're paying $600 a month to have all the balls you want, all the people you want. And I mean, what's the city really gaining on this? Future golfers, so I'm in on it. But we need to look at 450 new employees, guys. 450 new employees. Okay, counting the pro golfers, we have 27 employees over there. So come on, and they're basically going to be sucked up into the new golf course. The same people waiting on you having a sandwich and stuff, I would assume, will be at the new clubhouse that they're going to build. The one down there is falling apart, and we don't have the money to fix it. We really don't. So is everything perfect with Topgolf? No, it's not. Is it a true game of golf? That, again, depends on the golfer. We got one council member that's a 4 or 5 handicap. Now, that's a golfer. Okay, and then you got an ex-guy standing up here that's about a 27. That's not a golfer, but yet we both are, because we approach golf a different way. And we do what we can to enjoy the sport and enjoy the outdoors, the wild animals and stuff you get to see, as well as the wild animals on the golf course. So I don't understand why we're getting down to this little here. This has been going on 5.5 years. And now today we went and did everything that Topgolf gave us. We want more. When does it stop? You've all done with businesses in your lifetime. You've dealt with them. When does it stop? When does the guy say, get out of my store? I've done that when I run a business. I don't need that. I don't need you. Come on now. We're talking about millions of dollars coming to our city instead of losing money. Some say we don't lose money. So if the city didn't charge for the facility, probably we'd break even. And because golf is dying down, it has nothing to do with Topgolf. This has been on for over 5 years. All of a sudden, the numbers he gave the last 2 years, why don't we look before, see how it's been doing? It's been in a decline. This is something that's bringing golf back as Topgolf. Read Golf Magazine. Read any of the golf publications. They're so behind Topgolf, it's incredible. Even Jack Nicklaus and some of the pros are behind it. So I don't understand why we keep pushing down the envelope. If someone can't be here, that particular council person, if they are for or against it, why don't they write a letter, have it notarized, and give it to our attorney, and it can be read the night of it? Why do we keep postponing for this little reason and that little reason? I mean, this is a really good council. You guys should be moving quicker. And I understand, because I sat in one of those chairs. And the city's trying, and everyone's trying, but I just can't understand why we're having 2 people. Okay? They're both nice guys. And they're not hired by anyone. They're independent contractors. Come on, when I did a consulting business, I didn't get any specials. I made a deal and I worked it out. Well, this is no different. This thing that you want done in the next few days, and that other meeting with the same committee that I'm on and Mike and a few others are on, I think they would bust their rear ends to get it done. But all of it basically has been done today. Okay, we came back to Topgolf, which I think they'll buy, and then I can't understand, why are we still dickering around? I mean, the security's handled. You know that too now, Dr. Bryan. I mean, it's just, it blows my mind. Okay? And you know I respect all of you. So for me to get up here and say that, it bothers me. So I think we should have this post haste and get it on the 15th of August and close that course like it was supposed to be, okay? Because then we're going to be on schedule to open it back up. And I know my time's up and I know better, but anyway, thanks a lot.
Thank you. All right.
Any other public comment?
So, yeah, any other public comments, sir? You want to comment on the public comments?
I just want to share that the direction of the golf course subcommittee that's working on this is to make sure that we continue the programs that we have today. And that's the direction that's going forward. And to make sure that we achieve all that's in the due diligence work. That's the scope of what that committee is working on right now. So, and Dave's right. We're close to making this thing happen. It's tough to have a few of these things. There's other issues out there, and I'll take exception to some of your comments, Mr. Baldano, but we all have an opinion here. So, but maintaining the essence of the programs and the instruction that we have today over there is something that is easily achievable, and it makes it a win-win, and we got to get Topgolf to the table, and we're not getting a lot of help from a lot of you people out there about making this a win-win, and that's the thing that upsets me about it, to be honest with you. We're talking about minuscule tweaks in the operation to make this a win-win for everybody over there, and we can't get people on the table to talk about it and make it happen. We're not far away. And we hope to get there, and I'm optimistic that we will get there. But it isn't, I'm not going to get pushed around by a developer or a golf company. I'm not going to get pushed around. My criteria is I'm going to maintain those programs and the instruction that we've got out there today, or I'm not going to support it. Period. And that's my perspective going forward, and it's not asking a lot. Believe me, when the details come out of what's going on right now, can I share a little of that? Would that be appropriate or not?
Sure.
So we're talking about getting access to a couple hitting bays down on the lower level here. And the number of the hitting bays, Dave, help me out here. It's like, 8 or 10 during, the hours of...
Actually, they offered us 12, we went down to 10. The hours are from 6 to...
There's some time slot differences here and there.
Then we're asking for 6 to go later in the day to 7. And then on Thursday, which they wanted to end early, we're asking them to retain the bays we have and then keep 3 open for another 2 hours. Then on Saturday, it's basically the same thing, except we want to open from noon to 4 extra bays. They got it now from 8 to 4. So we're asking them just to extend that for 4 more hours. I don't think there's going to be a hang-up here. That's what we agreed today on the meeting. We all went out of there feeling that, we think Topgolf will say, you know what? We're giving back bays, they're giving us a few hours. And they're going to win on this too, because we're going to have new customers coming back after they've used it. They're going to buy a drink or something, so they're still going to make revenue. And I think I hope they say yes, because I think it pretty much is done.
So thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
But I'll share with you, and I'll be honest, that Topgolf, no matter what you put on the table, comes back with a business proposal. They're not a partner in this. They're absolutely not a partner in trying to make these programs continue on. And that concerns me when we're going to have a multi-year deal with the company here. And, Dave just shared, it's minuscule. I said, I made a comment in the meeting today. I'm embarrassed that we are talking about 1 or 2 mats for 1 or 2 hours a day. And that's the kind of stuff that we're not getting support from Topgolf. So when you sit there and you say, and you wonder, why aren't we making these deals? We're not asking for a lot. We're asking for a little bit here to make these programs go forward. And it's what was kind of promised in the due diligence to us. And it is mind-boggling that Topgolf is not just a partner with us going forward on this. So it's unfortunate that it comes out, but it's I'm concerned that we're going to have potentially a 50-year deal with these guys. They're a pain in the ass to deal with, and I don't like that. I hate making a deal with somebody like that I'm going to have a long-term deal with. So I would ask people to find out what's really going on with this, and it's hard to do because the information's not out there. I appreciate that, but support making this a win-win for everybody involved, and they can make that happen like that.
Okay, Carol, you have a comment?
So
Thanks,
I'm
Mike.
just going to give a little counter to that because I feel that, we just not a month ago gave them the list of hours, and then we've just submitted the counter proposal yesterday. So, I mean, that's a little unfair that you're saying that they're not a partner because we really haven't had them at the table, or we haven't been providing them the information because they're not receiving the information just like you and I aren't receiving the information. So it's like, I feel there's communication is killing this deal, and there is what's causing the frustration on both ends. And I think if we were to have Topgolf present at the meeting talking about the bays, we would get it resolved quickly. And I just feel it's unfair to put it all back on Topgolf because they have given us a lot. It's just that maybe our communication and our process has not been as diligent or as good as it should be.
Okay. We might be agreeing to disagree tonight on some of these matters. You feel like Mark and Greg, we've got a good process to get this resolved? I know I'm going to be out for the mid-August meeting, family camp. My whole family, it's the only week that was available. Is that when we're talking about addressing Topgolf? Do we need to do a special meeting? What do you suggest?
I think we're aiming for an update on the 15th.
Of the outstanding issues.
Of the outstanding issues, and potentially scheduling it for consideration for approval on September 5th.
I do think the outstanding issues are the ones, well, I mean, there might be some things that have to get finished, but I'm not seeing them as potentially taking any time or there's any disagreement over. I think the outstanding issues are by and large the ones we've been discussing tonight.
Okay. All right. I think we can adjourn, can't we? Thank you. All right. Thank you all. It was good dialogue. Thank you all.